Welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast. Lots to get into on the show today. Glad you can join us. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian. Of course, he had his Monday media availability yesterday, spoke to the media about the ULM game, but also gave an injury update, a status update on Quinn Ewers. So we'll hear from the head coach early on. We'll also go behind the burnt orange curtain, hear more from Steve Sarkisian and what he had to say to the media Monday. We'll get to a lot of different topics. Also, we'll discuss last night's games. The slate of games last night for Monday Night Football. We'll talk about Washington and also get into Buffalo. Both of those teams win last night and in impressive fashion. Both quarterbacks show out a little bit. So we'll get to that conversation. Also, we'll get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Continue to talk about the Cowboys and their disastrous performance, their fustercluck performance versus last night versus this weekend versus the Baltimore Ravens. Also, we'll get into the Houston Texans and once again a ugly UGLY performance versus the Minnesota Vikings. We'll continue to break that down. Look ahead a little bit to the Texas Longhorns' next opponent, the Mississippi State Bulldogs. They were looking for a solution at quarterback because their starting quarterback Blake Shapen out for the season. And also we'll look at some of the other weekend nuggets from college football as well. We got your usual favorites. We got Who Said That. We got What the Facts, What the Stats. We got Off the Record. We also got the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the Day. We got all of that and more coming up on the Rodcast today. Before we do, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew because he's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good on a Tuesday. It's ham day for anybody who enjoys any local music in Austin and live music. Today is an important day. If you have the ability to give a little bit, donations get matched at a lot of different places. You can go see live music and donate. But the HAM is the Health Alliance for Austin Musicians. If you do not know, basically they make it possible for a lot of musicians in this town to get affordable health care, that they're able to get people checkups and keep them healthy. And personally, I know that, I've worked with and been friends with a lot of musicians who it's been extremely helpful to, people who have had undiagnosed things. They haven't been able to go to a doctor for years, following their dreams, trying to be musicians. And then now to be able to get, the healthcare, people that have, I had a friend who, basically was at a doctor and had a heart attack there, as opposed to having it on stage. And who knows how bad that could have ended up. So, a lot of things at HAM is, save lives in the Austin music scene. So it's a really cool thing. They do this big day. It's a huge fundraising day for them. So they get people to match donations and corporate sponsors. So if you do have a chance to give, this is a really good day to do it. And if you go to myham.org, that's myham, HAAM.org, that you can find more info on how to donate, where to go see shows. There will be popped up at all these different weird locations, like the Lake Travis HEB and stuff. I think going on now, 6 a.m. It's kicking off.
That's crazy.
So there's good music all day long for Ham Day, but it is a very good cause and a cool day. So support our friends at HAM, myham.org, for more info on all that. But now we can get back to sports, and I can introduce you to my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod Father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
Appreciate the intro and appreciate the message. That is a great message to start the morning with. Over 200 plus performances across Central Texas. So if you're out today, there's a good chance you're going to roll across one or you'll see one. So you'll have an opportunity to be able to give to such a really great cause. So we appreciate that message, Patrick. Myham.org. Go check it out. And all day long, you'll have a chance to do that. I'm sure, like I said, if you're out, 200 plus performances across. So they'll be out and about. It's a great thing. All right. Let's get into some of the other topics of the day. Of course, we'll talk about last night's slate of games. We'll get into that. Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels. I think both of these guys are going to be in the conversation for some season accolades and awards. We'll talk about that. We'll also get into the Texas Longhorn conversation, of course, because Steve Sarkisian gave an update on Quinn Ewers and also gave him more thoughts, a little bit more in-depth conversation about Arch Manning and his first start versus ULM. So we'll get to that conversation too coming up. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed on all the top stories of the day. today with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines, and we'll come back and we'll break it all down. But first, the Horn Headlines with Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their first game against the Mariners 6-1 yesterday, still leaving them needing one win in the series to clinch the division. Hunter Brown pitched 6 innings, striking out 8 and only allowing 1 run, but picked up the loss as Houston could only put together 4 hits in the game. Yordan Alvarez missed the game and will be out the entire series with a right knee sprain as the Astros send Framber Valdez to the mound, hoping to win the division tonight. The Rangers open their series with the A's tonight with Nathan Eovaldi getting the start. This will be the final series played in the Oakland Coliseum before the A's relocate to Las Vegas next season. The Rangers are looking to finish the season on a positive note after going 4-6 in their last 10 games. And in the NFL, the Bills ran through the Jaguars 47-10 last night with Josh Allen scoring 4 touchdowns. And the Bengals fell to 0-3 after a 38-33 loss to the Commanders. Joe Burrow threw for 324 yards and 3 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough against the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, who scored 3 total touchdowns in the game. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. We'll get to that slate of games last night, but first let's start with the big story here, at least for Longhorn fans, and that is an update on the quarterback situation. Sark spoke to the media yesterday, his Monday media availability, and we'll get to some of that sound and audio coming up when we go behind the burnt orange curtain, but he did give an update on Quinn and on DeAndre Moore as well. DeAndre Moore left that game with I think it was, they said it was a hip pointer, but here's Steve Sarkisian giving a quick update on the injuries to Quinn Ewers and DeAndre Moore.
Quinn practiced today. I would say if I had to put a report out, he'd be questionable for Saturday, but we'll see how he goes throughout the week and monitor how he responds to tomorrow coming off of today's practice. And DeAndre Moore practiced today as well.
All right. Obviously, DeAndre Moore giving him a shout out. So we are concerned about his status, but obviously nationally, the conversation is about whether Quinn Ewers is going to start versus Mississippi State. I've stated how I feel. I believe if he's not 100%, you should, keep him out for one more week because I think you can beat Mississippi State with Arch, and that's not an insult to Mississippi State or Arch. They just lost their starting quarterback for the season. They're one of the worst rush defenses in all of college football. Like only 10 defenses in college football are giving up more rushing yards per game. And they just allow Florida quarterbacks, who even Florida fans will admit, Florida quarterbacks are not very good right now, allow them to complete over 90% of their passes. So they're not defending either well. They're not defending the pass really well. Yeah. They're not defending the run really well at this point. But I will admit, I did not see Sark playing Jaden Blue, or at least giving Jaden Blue 25 rushes and 7 targets in that game versus ULM. So there is something that, there are other things at play. There are other variables here at play for Sark. So I think if a guy can go, there is a chance that Sark may let him go, and he may not go with the very cautious, conservative approach, which is I'll keep him out one more week and he'll have the bye week on top of that. Because I didn't Blue thing is making me rethink. My strategy would be to keep out Quinn Ewers until give him as much time to recover as possible, because you're going to need him for the long haul, the long stretch. But also I wouldn't have given Jaden Blue 25 rushes against ULM.
No.
So I think Sark, so maybe Sark is thinking about these guys and their goals, and maybe Jaden Blue's like, hey, I need to show NFL scouts what I can do, and I need you to help me do that. And Sark's a player coach, and probably like, oh yeah, let's go. Of course. Even though you are, struggling a little bit with depth at the running back position, Sark still said, hey, I'm giving this guy this load. If he can play, he can play. And that is making me rethink the possible Quinn Ewers strategy for Sark, because if he can play, Sark may say, oh no, you can go. You go. That's part of our culture on this team, that we battle through it. If you're injured, you're injured. But if you're hurt, we play hurt. We battle through it. So I'm wondering if Sark will decide, because if he's practicing, that's what matters. If you're practicing, then he possibly could go toward the end of the
and he said he practiced on Monday, so he's there. The Jaden Blue one is a little bit interesting too, because I believe last week he said that they thought it was more of a sprain and then found it to be more of a bruise. And so there was part of it where they kind of
maybe it
went
wasn't
through
as bad as they thought.
And they thought, oh, you're not going to re-injure. The bruise is different than a sprain, because a sprain, you could really tear that ligament further or bend the ligament more. And then that becomes something that becomes a reoccurring injury. Whereas a bruise is just going to take a little time to heal. But it's a pain tolerance thing, not so much of a structural damage thing. And so I think once they figured out that the sprain wasn't really the big issue, the bruise was, it changed their mindset on what Jaden Blue, sorry. That I think that kind of changed it to where they went, oh, he's not really. He could have gone last week. He could have gone last week. He could have. We're fine. So I think there's part of that, but I agree. I still am on the side.
But they still have the depth issues though at the running back position. And guys are still getting hurt.
Yeah, and the fact, I mean, we think Jarrett Gibson may have got a little dinged up in that game too.
He did.
Because he only had 9 carries, and you would have assumed he would have gotten some of those at least. Maybe 5 more of those carries, so it's like 20 carries for Jaden Blue. So maybe that's in there too, that it wasn't supposed to be 25, and it got kind of away from Sark at a point.
An extra 6 or 7 that Sark got carried away. I can see that. But
at the same point, he's showing no mercy. No one sits like, if you're ready to play and you want to get out there, I'm gonna play.
You go.
And but that also means if you can go, that means you can go 4 quarters. You can go. You can play the entire.
Played in the beginning of the 4th quarter.
Yes.
He was in there in the beginning.
So if Quinn goes, it is not, Quinn, I need you to go out there and give me a half and get me a lead, and I'll put an arch, and we'll kind of watch you and pull you out early. It's, Quinn, I need you to go give me 4 quarters, and maybe I pull you. But at the same part, I need you to go into the game thinking you're giving me 4 quarters.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I would have been, like I said, my strategy would be, you definitely keep him out. And I would have assumed that Sark would try to keep Quinn out as long as possible, just so that he can get as healthy as possible. Because my assumption is he's never going to fully recover from that injury during the season. It's just going to be pain tolerance, and he's going to get as healthy as he can. And the more time that he has to recover, hence, the healthier he'll be. But yeah, Jaden Blue, and like you said, that's a good point about the bruise as opposed to a strain. But still, you got depth issues at running back. Still, guys get nicked up at running back. There ain't no pitch. There ain't no pitch count for Jaden Blue. I expected a pitch count. I expected. We got him at 15 rushes. Okay, you know what? Let's start shutting him down. We got this thing in. That was not a pitch. And you're right. Maybe the Jerry Gibson injury. Maybe that also changed their plans. I'm not sure what it was, because obviously I can't get to Sark's head about that kind of stuff. But something's just making me think that maybe it's part of the culture that if you can go, you go. We don't protect guys. That's why we got depth. If you can go, you go, and then we'll address it from there, because we can't safeguard and bubble wrap guys too much. I'm just saying, maybe rethink the culture thing as another part of it.
And so a thing that Sark says too, which he says it a few times throughout the last few press conferences, is he does not refer to it as a non-conference. He refers to it as preseason a lot. And he'll go, we just wrapped up
NFL. He's taking up NFL.
But he is. Yeah, but in that mindset of we're through preseason now, is okay, I'm still trying to get this team where I needed to get them. We're not good enough to win a championship right now, and I know that. So I have to keep working, and I think that's part of wanting to get Jaden Blue more work, when he can get him more work and go, you need to be a better running back. You need to be the guy that we need, because we need you to be a national championship running back. And I think if he can get Quinn in there, he goes, Quinn, you need to be better, because I need you to be this quarterback by the end of the season. I think there's parts of that in there for him too. Now, I agree with you. You have to somewhat judge that with the health of the team. But I think for Sark, that's something that he's mentioned a lot of times is we need to get better. We need to be better. And it's a lot harder to get better when you're not playing in the games.
He told, we'll play this, but he talked about in the media video that Jaden Blue, after watching the film, came up to Sark and said, man, I should have played a lot better, even though he had over 100 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. So, I agree. That's something to that. Like I said, I still, at this point, I would be leaning toward, man, we don't need you versus Mississippi State. You need to get healthy, stay out. You're a third-year veteran in the system. I'm not worried about you being rusty. You won't be rusty, all right? You'll be ready to roll. If you have some rust, it'll last you a couple of series. We'll get over that. Your health is the only thing really that can derail this thing right now. We are loaded. We are talented. We are deep. Your health, you actually having a long-term injury where you can't come back from versus the season, that would derail. And to me, that would hurt your NFL. To me, that hurts your NFL draft stock even more than, he missed a couple of games, because they just want to see you in the big games. NFL scouts want to see you in the big games. They do. Guys, they don't even really watch these ULM games. They don't. So some guys really watch in depth, but they watch the big games. They want to see you versus NFL competition. It's a distorted evaluation when you get to see a guy versus a very much inferior competition. All right, so big games and why did he leapfrog Shadir Sanders in the draft evaluations? Because of Michigan. It was a big game against NFL competition. Said, you know what, that guy. And the next game like that, it'll be Oklahoma because that's NFL competition on the other side. They got a really good defense. Brent Venables really respected defensive mind, just like Wink Martindale in Michigan. Guys, that is what if it's about draft stock, then you got to be healthy for the big games. Can't miss the big games. You want to be your healthiest for the big games, so you show out, which Quinn has done. So I still would lean toward keeping him out, but I will admit Sark may be, he may have a different attitude when guys are at a certain point of health. That if you can go, you go. You got to be able to practice to go. And if Quinn's practicing, it seems like me, then maybe he's ready to roll. He might be ready versus Mississippi State. Either way, you'll be in good shape. Okay, let's hear. Can we have one more from Sark and then talk about the Monday Night Football games? This is him. He was asked about what Quinn needs to do. Like, what does Quinn need to do in his eyes to be ready to play, to get the okay from coach that he's the starting quarterback for the Mississippi State game? Here's what Sark had to say.
He's got to do enough to show him he can play. I know that's probably not the answer you wanted, but that's what I mean. Like, I don't know. It's not, we've got a game plan. Can he execute the game plan? I hate to, pare it down to that, but that's really the truth. Again, I want to make sure he's healthy enough to play at a high level. And can he go operate the game plan that we have in place for him? So that's why I kind of need to see how he responds from today's work, and then what it looks like on a Tuesday, then a Wednesday, which are pretty heavy days for him, and then how he rebounds on Thursday, so on and so forth. So it's going to be kind of a work in progress. But today was a good start. I was actually impressed of where he was today. But that's been part of kind of his trajectory since the injury happened. I feel like he keeps getting, incrementally better day by day.
All right. There's Sark talking about Quinn, that he's getting better, day by day. So I don't know. So right now, it seems like he's leaning toward Quinn playing. But he could just be gamesmanship, forcing, and this is bad for Mississippi State. You got to prepare for both of them. And they're not the same quarterback at all. And to me, the offense looks very different with Quinn and with Arch. And maybe I'm just diving into it too deep. And we talked about this yesterday. It'd be different if they were similar in their styles, but they're not really similar. At least not the Arch that we saw in the last 6 quarters that we've seen Arch. It's been the system looks a little bit different, and I've pointed that out. So it's good for Mississippi State. Good for Texas versus Mississippi State. They'll have to game plan for both Arch and for Quinn until Sark releases.
And I'll throw in, I think there's something to be said too, that he doesn't want to discourage Quinn by saying you're working so hard to get back that I'm just going to come out and rule you out immediately and tell you. So, he can still on Wednesday or Thursday have the heart to heart with Quinn and say, man, I can still see you pulling up. Like, I know you're forcing it, and why don't you sit this game out? But he doesn't want to tell him on a Monday, hey man, shut her down, go in there and do, because you're trying to keep this guy in a killer mindset all season long. You want to keep him engaged with the team. You want to keep him engaged with the ones and how he was hyping up the team on the sideline on Saturday. You want all that still there. So I think there could be some that you just don't want to, overstep your boundaries with Quinn and tell everybody on Monday he's not going to play and kind of slow down his progress.
No, I agree. But you also want to empower Arch. If you're going to give him that start, you want to empower him. Like, hey, I need you to look like the starter, work like that. Everybody assumes you are. It's a different, there's a different mode and different method to it because you practice with the ones. So I imagine they're splitting time with the ones now.
I have to imagine. I can't imagine
unless he already has decided and he's just like, hey, it doesn't get outside of these walls, but you going with the ones, that kind of thing. So either way, for Texas, you got to be ready for both those. But I like your point about it. And I love shout out to my man CB. If you haven't seen the video at Chris GB 002,000, go check it out. The Quinn Ewers video where he's giving the team a little pep talk, a little motivational speech. It is powerful. I mean, that's a powerful it's a powerful image for Longhorn fans. I don't know about nationally, but Longhorn fans know the journey of Quinn as a leader, and that he wasn't a vocal leader when he first got here, and that was not something he was comfortable with. And he was comfortable with, allowing others to lead. And just kind of taking the role of, hey, as long as I do my job, and I'm a good teammate, that's enough. And it is enough for everybody else except quarterback. It's the only position that is a natural leadership position, and you have to embrace it. And it's taken him a little while, but that was the image of Quinn for Longhorn fans, him embracing the leadership. Yeah. And essentially, even in that moment where Arch is the big headline, everybody's talking about him as the big storyline, that Quinn Ewers still basically claimed ownership or reaffirmed his leadership with the team, even in that moment. That was powerful. And I was talking to my man Stevie Lee about it. Shout out to the Lifetime Owner Stevie Lee. I thought it was a great point. He said, honestly, it was really good for Heisman voters around the country, because all they were thinking about was, everybody tuned in for Arch, but they got a little sneak peek of Quinn, because that was a moment that that they re-aired and showed a lot, and it kind of went viral, and people got a chance to see it. Like, oh no, it's still Quinn's team. Well, that's Quinn's team. Okay, good to know. Good to know, because naturally there's a ignorant narrative that, oh man, Arch can make a move, and I think now people are starting to dispel that. Yeah, but that was, like I said, that was profound. It was really, I'm proud of Quinn. I'm happy for him in that moment. That was it, because the NFL scouts need to see that, guys. They need to see him, all right, as the face of a franchise, someone who can be an alpha male among alpha males and be the leader in a locker room. That was the moment that he kind of showed that.
For the progress from the Alamo Bowl, which the Alamo Bowl for me was the first time I saw Quinn try to be a leader. I remember that was the one when Bijan and Roshan had already moved on, and it was kind of this, he knew he had to start trying to take over the team. And in that game, they weren't playing well at points, and you saw him on the sideline, and he was trying to be that guy, but he just wasn't there yet because it was not natural to him. It wasn't his thing. From that to you see him now, and that's only a year and a half later, really, and how much progress he's made from that game. That's what's really cool about it, is to see that, from a guy really just uncomfortably trying to do it to now a guy comfortably can walk out in front of that team and be the leader.
Yeah, like you said, and it didn't seem like he was trying too hard. It seemed natural. It didn't seem like, all right, I got to be a leader. He was like, no. That he felt like in that moment, hey, this is, and I love the Jade Barron right there, kind of his hype man, like, yeah. And it was, and he wasn't necessarily rocking him. He was, I think in that moment, he was proud of him. He was like, finally, this is what we've been waiting on you to do, man. It says, go ahead, just do your damn thing. I think it was that kind of thing. So, I don't know, it gave me, as a Longhorn fan, gave me chills. I thought that was really pretty cool. Okay, we'll get to more Longhorn conversation. We go behind the burners curtain. Let's talk about the games last night, though, because let's first of all talk about Josh Allen. Guys, Josh Allen right now may be your MVP leader, or at least in the MVP. It's very, very, very early. He's leading currently. Remember we talked about this last week about how strange the quarterback QBR rankings are and passer rating rankings are. But right now, Josh Allen is leading both. After last night, he is your NFL leader in QBR. He is your NFL leader in passer rating at a 133.7 passer rating, a 92.6 QBR, and he looked fantastic last night. I mean, they put an Old Testament style butt whipping on Jacksonville, 47-10, but that thing was out of hand quickly. I mean, after the first half, it wasn't even worth watching. And it basically the first drive of the game, the Bills went 70 yards and scored in 10 plays. And then the last 4 drives all ended with Josh Allen touchdown. They had, I think it was a rushing touchdown, that first one, but ended up with 4 touchdowns in the first half. He was 22 of 28, 247 yards, 4 touchdowns, 143 passer rating, and 22 rushing yards on top of that in the first half versus Jacksonville. Things are looking bleak in Jacksonville. They just paid Trevor Lawrence all that money, and now they're 0-3. The number for 0-3 teams, by the way, we'll talk about Cincinnati, also 0-3. Since 1990, only 4 of 162 0-3 teams, that's 2.5%, have made the postseason. So it ain't looking good for Jacksonville. No, they're pretty much done.
Looking at the MVP odds for the NFL, Josh Allen apparently overnight has jumped Patrick Mahomes to the leader in the odds.
I'm not gonna lie. You know why? I'm not gonna, because I was wrong. Well, so far I've been wrong. about that Kansas City offense and how they would open it up. Dude, the average depth of target for Patrick Mahomes this season is 5.2. That's why. Because if you watch Josh Allen's exciting to watch.
Yeah.
Like he's scrambling around. I mean, he has they got a vertical passing game. They throw it downfield. Shout out to Joe Brady. Remember people mocked them putting Joe Brady in that spot. That offense has been clicking. They lost a lot of pieces too offensively. Yeah, the offense actually has improved with Joe Brady at the helm.
Yeah.
It's just Josh Ball. It's Josh Allen playing hero ball.
Wait, is this
it's a Josh Ball offense?
Is this another person the Panthers have ruined their reputation? Joe Brady?
Yeah, I think you're right. Matt Rule on top of it, Joe Brady.
That's what we used to call. We used to call what Nick Saban the coaching car wash.
Yeah,
was that the Carolina Panthers with the coat?
Oh man,
just the muddy. You're just mudding out there, just covered in dirt afterwards.
It's just like the coaching junkyard. I don't know what happened. You go there, I don't.
Quarterbacks.
Right.
There's two quarterbacks that are dominating the league right. They're playing really well in Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. Both of them were just like, no, you're worthless.
I'll give it up to Andy Dalton though. He did look good, but no, that's why Patrick Mahomes. I'm telling you, if he's not going to win MVP, it's going to be because. It's not an exciting brand of football watching Kansas City try to matriculate down the field. 5.2 yards average depth of target. That's crazy. If you go look at his, and people think that's because of a too high thing. No, his average depth of target versus single high is 6.1. And versus two high is 4.6. He just doesn't throw the football downfield anymore. He's just like, nah. He's just like, it's easier this way. Let me just dump it on off. I have no idea what's going on, but that's why he won't win MVP because that style of football is just not fun to watch. Josh Allen's playing. He's got some hero ball moments out there, man. He looks fantastic in that offense, and I'll give him props, and I'll give Joe Brady a lot of props too. Since Joe Brady took over that offense, how about this, guys? They're 8-1. The Bills. Since then, and we're talking about obviously the regular season here. Points per game, they're 28th. 28 seriously points per game, which is 5th in that time span. Rushing yards per game, this is the big one because usually their running game was just Josh Allen and playing hero ball. 142 rushing yards per game. They're top 5 in that category in that time span. Third down conversions, 2nd in the NFL in that time span. I think week 11 of 2023 is when he took over. I'm telling you, they look different, and I still don't think they're going to win a championship. But I will admit they don't look like they regressed as much as I anticipated, and it's because of the, ascent of Josh Allen, who now is in the MVP conversation and is right now playing like the best quarterback in the league. Period.
Yeah,
right now.
No, 100%. It's you can definitely tell that. I mean, it's watching him, and it's funny because you watch him versus Trevor Lawrence, and you just see the two. Right. Sides of quarterbacks where you just see a guy who just goes, no, we're going to go. And I mean, he has a better team around, he has some other options that are probably a little bit better, maybe a better coach, but at the same part, it's just Josh Allen making a lot of things work.
Yeah. No, right. Like I said, we haven't seen Josh Allen play this well, and you got to give Joe Brady some props. Joe Brady and I knew Joe Brady hadn't lost. I remember people were like, oh, Joe Brady's tough. I said, I remember him being an offensive genius when he was at LSU, and then all of a sudden he became an imbecile overnight. And I'm like, that can't be the case.
No,
I think some guys, they got to reinvent themselves a little bit.
There's still the people out there that believe Joe Brady and Joe Burrow were both frauds in that it was a one-off season. Like, I don't think that's the case.
No, the big part of Josh Allen's game right now that's totally changed. We got 3 games right now, 0 interceptions.
Yeah, that's big.
That's big. That's a different Josh Allen.
Yeah,
that was really the big. He was always high reward, but you had so much risk involved too. I got to go look at his fumbles, but he's lowered the risk element in his game. He's really lowered the risk element, and I think that's, to me, what the biggest difference in this Josh Allen that we're seeing just playing like the best quarterback in football. I think he is. Just saying he's playing like it. The young buck. How about this? Jaden Daniels. He's 4th in passer rating and 7th in QBR. The young rookie who for the Washington Commanders, he may be right now the front runner for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah,
he's the only rookie top 10 in both categories at the quarterback position. And man, I gotta tell you, he's so small. He's so small and almost look frail sometimes out there. But man, his deep ball was great. He had a 91% completion percentage, which I believe is the rookie record. He set the rookie record for completion percentage in a game with 91%. He had his 2 incompletions were 2 deep balls. So it was 2 passes over 20 yards or more. Those were his only incompletions. He is really efficient in that offense. Remember, that's Cliff Kingsbury's offense. Yeah. And I'll say one thing about Dan Quinn, and I've said it for a long time too. Man, he knows how to pick offensive coordinators for his system. Remember, Kyle Shanahan was his OC. Sark Sark was his OC. He did screw it. Dirk Cutter was his OC after Sark. I think he got lost. That's probably why things went haywire on him. And then he obviously with this new job, he has Cliff Kingsbury as his OC. I will say that he had Raheem Morris with him as his assistant head coach, though, after Sark left. And Raheem Morris was a wide receivers coach and then a DC for him. That's how much he loved Raheem Morris, who's now the head coach of the Falcons. He loved him so much. He was the assistant head coach for him, coached wide receivers 1 year. Very next season was the DC. How often do you see that?
No, you
coach, right? On different sides of the ball. It's so that just shows you how much trust he's got in Raheem Morris as a football mind.
That's a Bill Belichick move. If I don't want to trust anybody,
but anyway, good point. That's true. I guess you could criticize the move, but I actually think it was a good move. And I think Raheem Morris, who was with me when I was actually in Tampa Bay, he was like a quality control dude in Tampa Bay. It was a hell of a coaching room there. You had Monty Kiffin. Mike Tomlin was the DB coach. Raheem Morris was the quality control coach in there. Dude, I was just sat in the back and soak up knowledge. We had Rondé Barber in that room with us. Oh man, that was a nice DB room. Anyway, but getting back to it, I'm impressed with Jaden Daniels, guys. I really am. Like I said, best completion percentage in a single game by a rookie in NFL history. 254 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he ran a little bit too, but didn't run too much. Remember, his scramble rate in college was absurd. Like he was scrambling constantly. And I think that was one of the issues, right? I look at his scramble rate because I still have it here. His scramble rate, how about this? In college, you're going back to 2014. He had the second most scrambles since 2014. In 2022 with 70. He had the third most scrambles in college football since 2014. In 2019 with 2 different schools, right? With Arizona State was 67. Only Drake May has had more scrambles in a season since 2014 in college football than Jaden Daniels. He loves and he's great at it. Actually, you go look at it. He had a 27% explosive play rate at LSU when he was scrambling. And Josh Allen's great at scrambling. Actually, scrambles is the most efficient play in football. Scrambles average over 8 yards per play. When a quarterback scrambles, they just don't do it a lot because you're in harm's way, and that you want to work from the pocket. But if you got a quarterback that can scramble, it can make plays, and he made a few of those scrambling too. But I remember Taylor Britt, the Cincinnati Bengals DB, said that offense, that Washington offense was a college offense. It is an air raid offense, but you're starting to install some more pro principles. But that dude looks electric in that offense. So there you go. That's Jaden Dan. We'll talk more about those games last night. I don't know what the hell Cincinnati's going to do. It's over for Cincinnati. They're not making the playoffs. Not in that division. Nope.
No, it's almost like, hear me out. It's almost like you shouldn't let all your players feel that they're underappreciated and not going to get paid. It might lead to bad starts. I don't know. I don't know what teams I'm thinking about there, but might be
Explain the Cowboys then. Explain Dallas then. They just paid their guys.
No. They all offseason didn't, and they're 1-2.
So at least they got one. Yeah. No, you're right about that. That's a great point. The culture-wise, I wonder if now things are starting to deteriorate for them because there are a lot of players that want to be paid and they won't pay them.
No, and I mean, in reality too, Hendrickson going down in that game, who's already like there's some injuries on that defense. Lou Anarumo is a really good DC, but the offense didn't lose that game. No,
they had 436 yards for total offense.
Yeah, that was a defensive. You have to be able to stop Jaden Daniels in a Cliff Kingsbury offense. You just have to be able to stop it. I don't know why Lou Anarumo couldn't. I don't know if it was the players, what it is, but they could not figure it out, and that's a problem.
I think Jaden Daniels he might be special.
He might be really good.
He just might be really
good.
No,
I think that they're good, but you should be. There's not enough talent on that roster on the offensive side that you should be able to slow them down a little bit. And they didn't really seem like they were really that slowing them down.
No, that's true. All right. We'll get to more NFL news, notes, and nuggets coming up next hour. We'll talk Cowboys and Texans. Coming up next, we'll go behind the burnt orange curtain here from Steve Sarkisian right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. Sark met with the media, as he does every Monday during the season. Spoke about their last opponent, ULM, the upcoming opponent. We'll hear from Sark and talk about. We'll hear from Sark talking about their upcoming opponent a little bit later on the show. But I want to play this audio of Sark discussing Arch Manning and his first start versus ULM. He was asked about the Arch learning curve in that game and what he thought about the real time kind of evolution of Arch during that game as getting his first start. Here is Sark talking about Arch and the learning curve during that ULM game.
Well, I mean, he loves the game of football. He studies it and he works at it. I think one of the challenges is what we're trying to get him to point is making sure that when the ball snap that he plays football. Because it's still a game and you still have to play it. And I don't want him to get almost paralysis by analysis, because you can over prepare to some degree too, where you start chasing, what I thought was going to happen because this is what I saw. The other team can make mistakes too, and you got to be able to react to the things that happen. So, he works really hard, and I think but we've created, I think, that type of, environment in the quarterback room that we want to be the fastest mental players on every snap. And to do that, you have to prepare, you have to work at your craft, and Arch does it just like the rest of the guys.
And here's another clip of Sark diving a little bit deeper into his evaluation of Arch's first start versus ULM.
One thing that he did really well Saturday, and I know I talked about it Saturday night, but a year ago, after that pick, that might have taken a minute for him to rebound from. And I thought he responded really well mentally. I thought his poise and composure was really good Saturday. Even after the pick at the end of the first half, to come back in the second half and play the way he did in the third quarter, I thought was impressive for me, just from a maturity standpoint of how far that he's grown. Arch believes in his ability, and so he's going to try to take some of these shots, and we reap the benefits of it. Like I said, I just rattle off 4 plays of guys making down the field. As he continues to grow, he's going to learn the value of some of those explosive plays on the perimeter on checkdowns. And, he got one to Ryan Niblett and some different things, but I think there's going to be some other throws for him out there. But I've just been impressed, for me, for a guy early on in his career, the way he rebounded. And I've seen a lot of young quarterbacks have a rough start, and then that rough start turns into a rough game. And it was a little bit of a rough start for him, but I thought he rebounded and did some nice things for us.
Yeah, I agree. I said that yesterday. I was like, you didn't see him start to spiral. You didn't see the quicksand some young players get in when they make one mistake, and then they focus too much on that one mistake, and they allow that mistake to haunt them the rest of the game. And you didn't see that from him. Got over it pretty quickly, moved on to the next play. Good or bad, by the way. You're not supposed to reflect on any of that. Just move on to the next play. So I do like that about him. Sark was also asked about, because Sark keeps implying that Arch is really, or at least he's robotic at times, that he is very, regimented and wants to make sure he's technically proficient, and that it is kind of almost mechanical. And because he keeps talking about, we want him to loosen up, want him to use his instincts and play. Here is Sark being asked, because later on someone asked him, like, so you think Arch is going to loosen up when he plays? You're going to see him play with a little bit more confidence and swagger, rather than trying to make sure you operate within, the structure of the offense all the time and be almost robotic and mechanical in your approach. Here is what Sark had to say.
Oh, I think he will. And that just comes with, he's a really conscientious guy, and he wants to do it right. And sometimes some of the more simple things, he can overthink it a little, but that's just going to come from playing and being loose and confident. And that's really when he's at his best. I mean, I could tell you, when he's loose and confident and enjoying being with his teammates and playing ball, that's when he's at his best. It's just that fine line of figuring that out. And that's why experience is so important at that position.
And here's Sark is right about that too. Here's one piece of audio I thought was interesting. We discussed the depth issues at running back, losing CJ Baxter, losing Christian Clark, and then guys getting nicked up like Trey Wisner, like Jared Gibson, even Jaden Blue's been nicked up already this season. And my thought, and you guys know how I feel about it, that this is a pass first offense. You got to lean on the pass, give the offense to Quinn, really high early game, early down pass rates, which I think Sark was trending toward before the injury to Quinn. Hell, in that game versus UTSA, you were damn near close to 70% early game, early down pass rate before Quinn went down. Didn't have your first rushing play in the 10th play of the game. Here's Sark talking about how the offense, he had to modify things a little bit with the offense with all the injuries to running back.
Yeah, we really haven't had to change it. And I don't, to y'all's naked eye of watching it, I don't know if it feels so differently to our style of play. I think we've challenged our backs, when CJ went down or Chris went down, like, we believe in running the football. We believe in running between the tackles. Naturally, when you have a veteran quarterback, you might have a little more confidence in Quinn to maybe play pitch and catch and get completions and some obvious rundowns to where a team's committed to the run and you can get completions and get the ball on the perimeter. But at the end of the day, we're doing all that we like to do. I would like our screen game to pick up a little bit. We just missed some opportunities. We had one off of Blue's fingertips the other night, but that's something that we take a lot of pride in. So we're always looking for areas of improvement, but I don't think schematically we've changed a whole lot. We've added some wrinkles like we would every year, but nothing has really dramatically changed.
Dramatically didn't change, but strategically he's changed. He just admitted that, like, yeah, with Quinn, I'd throw some early downs. And yeah, like I told you guys, the early game, early down pass rate was starting to shoot through the roof. And I think that's the shift. That was a smart strategy by Sark. But now Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size butt is, well, now you have Arch Manning in there, and I think now you need more balance in the offense because it's a young quarterback, and you don't want to overburden him with a 70% early game, early down pass rate. All right, so last cut I want to play is Sark. He was asked about the deep balls. They threw 10 passes of 20 yards or more in that game, 8 of them in the first half. I think there are 2 games, maybe Oklahoma State for Quinn at Oklahoma State a couple of years ago when they were obsessed with the deep ball and fixated on it. Maybe that Texas Tech game in Sark's first year that Texas threw that many deep balls, but it's really rare for Texas to be that obsessed with the deep ball. Here's Sark talking about what led to a lot of those deep shots versus ULM.
No, that was definitely the plan going into that game. We felt like there were some things there that we could take some shots at. And, in a game plan for us, my call sheet has got, it's got all sorts of different styles of plays and throws. And then in the end, I was sitting with Coach Milwee and we were getting ready to, kind of do our openers and must calls and then our openers. And we looked up and man, there's a lot of shots on here. And I think part of that is a byproduct of we like those plays going into the game. Part of it was a byproduct of, I think Arch is a really good deep ball thrower and gives guys chances to go make plays on those shots down the field and his willingness to go do that. And so it's probably a byproduct of a few of those things. But in the end, like I said, Friday or Saturday night, with a young quarterback, I'm kind of kicking myself a little. I wish I had a few other kind of freebie completions for him just so that there could have been a little bit more balance and not, getting that completion percentage up, being efficient and moving the chains. But the explosive plays are great when you can hit them down the field. You just got to know when to check the ball down, and not everyone has to be that throw. And so, but that's, again, learning experience for him and learning experience for me too, working with him of what that looks like, with him in game.
Yeah. Volume of deep passes right now for Arch, 25% of his pass attempts are deep passes. For Quinn, that's 9%. Quinn last year, 12%. Quinn in 2022, 17, damn near 18%. That's pretty high. Casey Thompson in 2021, 16%. Hudson Card was 15%. Mac Jones in 2020, 14%. Tua in 2019 is 16%. Shout out to On Texas Football for those stats. So he does chunk it a lot more than previous start quarterbacks. That may be an Arch thing. And I noticed it too. That's why I told you guys, verticality coming back to the offense with Arch. He likes to chunk it downfield. And that's Sark admitting. And he's got a good deep ball. It's better than Quinn's deep ball was at that point in his development. All right, we come back. We got topic for the Big Fat Poll today. And then we'll also have your musically themed day of the week right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn.
Back on the Rodcast on a Tuesday morning, and that means it's the top of the charts Tuesday, so I can play the right playlist for the right song on the first song. This is starting off top of the charts Tuesday with the box tops for number one on this day in history. All the songs we'll play on a top of the charts Tuesday were number one on this day in history. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. It will be text lines open 512-447-3776, and it is available up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, big fat poll of the day today. After we saw a commanding performance from the Commanders, getting a win over the Bengals week 3, we've seen that Jaden Daniels looks like he is the front runner for the rookie of the year, I would say so far. He's looking like the quarterback playing the best right now. This team Austin Eckler's playing pretty well. The receivers are playing well. We've seen what Dallas has done and their shortcomings so far this season. The Eagles haven't looked great. They're 2-1, but they don't look really great either. I'll ask you the question after 3 weeks: who do you think will win the NFC East? This has been a ride that before the season, I think it was kind of between the Cowboys and the Eagles. Everybody thought they were going to play well. Through the first 3 weeks, the Commanders have looked better in games than the Cowboys. And I guess the Cowboys looked good week 1 against the Browns, and then have looked really bad the next 2 weeks.
Is that just the Browns are that bad?
And by the way, the Giants also beat the Browns.
Exactly.
So if we're just judging on that, the Giants win is over the Browns too. Yeah. So there is something, and it was a closer game. It's a closer game than the Cowboys had with them. But that is I think it's a different look. I think we asked this question not that long ago, and it was pretty predominantly Cowboys and Eagles, and I think that will change now. Just after 3 weeks of play, do you guys still have faith that the Cowboys will figure it out, turn it around, maybe make a move, maybe get it figured out? Do you have faith that the Eagles will get it turned around? Or is this a Commanders team that seems like it goes? I think we're still leaving the Giants out of it, right? We still don't have to bring them into it. But
yeah, I don't think the Giants are going to – they may spoil something for somebody.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're going to win the NFC's. No way. I don't have them like that. No. But no, I'm right now. I gotta admit, I can't pick the Cowboys the way they look right now. That's crazy. With a run, we'll get into it next hour. The run defense that bad, I can't pick the Cow. And a run game that bad.
Yeah.
Your run defense and run game are both bottom. What are we talking about here? Bottom 5 of the NFL, easy. I haven't even looked at the stats, but something tells me they're probably bottom 5 of both of those categories. I can't pick them. And the last time we've had a repeat champion in the NFC East, you got to go back to 2004. So, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
So longest streak in the NFL of a different champion, of at least not having a repeat champion in a division. And who won the division last year? Cowboys?
Yeah, the Cowboys won it last year, right?
It ain't looking good. Right now, it ain't looking good for them. I don't know. I guess I'd pick the Eagles right now. And I'm not confident in that, but somebody's got to win it.
Someone's got to win it.
So, I'm going to pick based on history and then based on where the Cowboys rush defense and run game look. I'm going Eagles.
No, I mean, after
the Eagles coaching stresses me out.
Exactly. And I mean, like, I like Vic Fangio, but I mean, he's also made some bonehead plays. I'm not a big Kellen Moore fan. I'm not a Kellen Moore full on hater, but I'm also, there's a reason he's on his third team in 3 years.
I don't disagree.
It's not everybody else.
And I'm not a Kellen Moore. I actually was a Kellen Moore fan, but I will admit, there's a reason he is on his third team in 3 years. Like, I can't. What do you want me to say? I can't. He's giving me nothing to argue his case with the last few years.
And now Cliff Kingsbury's making his case to take over from Mike McCarthy in Dallas.
Yeah, I don't know what the Cowboys. We'll get into because I would, if the Cowboys had just one of those issues and not both of those issues, then I'd feel more confident picking the Cowboys. But I can't do it with having, like I said, two of the worst rush, one of the worst rush defenses and one of the worst run games overall in the league. I can't do it. So I'm going Eagles, I guess, begrudgingly. Essentially, I would pick the Eagles out of process of elimination.
That's the question, and that's kind of the question: is do you believe the Cowboys will turn it around? Do you just say, well, screw it, it's the Eagles, they'll win it, or do you think that this is a Commanders team that maybe is going to turn a corner and Jaden Daniels is going to go get him in there and have a great rookie season, and they'll just surprise some guys in a weak conference this year?
He's already having a great rookie. I mean, like I say, he's on the rookie top 10 in QBR and passing. He's like 4th in, he's 7th in QBR and 4th in passer rating. He's already having a really good. Yeah, Dallas is. I thought that. I just looked at it. Worst rush defense in the league. They allow more rushing yards in the league. And I would go look at their rushing offense. You want to bet it's the worst in the league?
Yeah, and I'll throw something in there for you guys to think about as well when you talk about winning the division and the best record. And this is because this is something the Texans dealt with last year. Third worst. But but the Commanders have the easier schedule. They have the 4th place schedule in that, so they will have some easier matchups in these other games because they'll be playing the lighter schedule than the Cowboys and the Eagles, who have to play the first and second string schedules. So there's just something to say that they may win another 1 or 2 games just solely on the strength of schedule.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. And like I said, I like Jaden Daniels. I think he's a nice young rookie. Dan Quinn can coach defense. Say what you want about Cliff Kingsbury's offense, but he's one of the more respected minds in the league for an offensive mind. I'm talking about him as a head coach.
Yeah.
And oh man, in Dallas, you are. They're the third worst rushing offense and the worst rushing defense in the league right now. I can't pick that to win a division. I can't. You can't be that deficient in those two main areas. Yeah. That is that's a horrible combination. Basically, the worst rushing offense and worst rushing defense in the league. The only two rushing offenses that are worse are Chicago Bears, and they are 1 yard worse in terms of rushing yards per game. And Las Vegas. Las Vegas is terrible. They're averaging 50 rushing yards a game. That just
remember that whole Zamir White's going to lead the league in rushing.
Yeah. Patrick won't let him forget it. He won't let him forget.
I told you, throwing money away. You're throwing money away.
He won't let him forget it. Yeah, I do remember that. We actually had a little segment about it. I didn't know why that was the case either. That was just what the Action Network had put out there. But you're right. I don't know what's going on with the Raiders run game. It's terrible. All right, there you go. Oh man, the Rams are down there too. Rams are the 4th worst run game. The 5th worst run game in the league, the Bengals. There's a trend here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Bengals, they got rid of Joe Mixon. They sent Joe Mixon to the Texans. So they're trying to figure it out now with Chase Brown, who actually looked good in his runs, but then they're playing Zach Moss. And
they had 129 yards rushing. So
they did.
They ran the ball pretty good. Yeah, they ran the ball pretty well.
But yeah, they don't have they don't have the guy.
Yeah, they just didn't make enough crucial, critical plays defensively against. But they 436 yards of offense. Man, Cincinnati should have won that game. All right, we come back. We'll get into speaking of NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We got the topic for the big fat poll today. Who do you have winning the NFC East? I'm gonna, like I said, begrudgingly, by the process of elimination, I'm gonna take the Eagles. But I can be swayed. I might change my mind by the end of the show. Who knows? All right, we come back though. We'll tell you how bad is that Cowboys rush defense. I have some stats, unfortunately, that give us perspective on it. We can contextualize how bad that is. We'll get into that. Also, I have a couple of other thoughts on the Texans' disastrous performance versus the Minnesota Vikings. We'll get into that too. Coming up on the other side, we got Rod's rant. We'll do a Texas football-related Rod's rant. We'll talk about that Texas defense not getting enough love. I'll tell you 2 of the things I observed about that Texas defense that make it so special. And, should we start using the word with describing this Texas defense, a certain word that we usually don't just throw out there willy-nilly? Should we start doing the Longhorn defense? Should we start elevating them in that conversation? We'll talk about that too on the side, right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host Patrick Davis, the Idillionaire, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate Patrick always hooking us up for the musically themed days of the week. He also does a great job coming up with the topics for the Big Fat Poll of the day. Always a great conversation starter. Patrick, what is the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day?
Big Fat Poll of the day. After 3 weeks, who do you think will win the NFC East?
That's good. After 3 weeks, I know I say I'm going by a process of elimination here because there hasn't been a repeat champion in the NFC East for 20 years.
Okay.
2004 was the last time, and it was the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's a longer streak. That is, and nobody can really explain that. It's just freaking weird. So with that being said, Cowboys won division last year, so I'm a little reluctant to pick the Cowboys because of that. And also, worst rush defense in the league, third worst rushing offense in the league. Really bad combination. All right, that's a horrible combination. If you had one of those, I could still see you working your way through it. You can't be basically the worst rushing offense and rushing defense in the league and expect to win division. I can't see that. So process, even though I'm not thrilled about the coaching staff of the Philadelphia Eagles. I like Vic Fangio, but they just had a lot of turnover, and I'm not sure about Nick Sirianni and his leadership as a head coach. I do think he's got some good qualities, but maturity wise, I'm not sure about Nick Sirianni, but I think Philly's definitely got enough talent to do it. And I don't like the combination of the rookie quarterback with a first year head coach at that location in Washington for Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn's coached before. I like Dan Quinn, by the way. He picks great coaches. I think he could have success there, especially now looking at Jane Daniels, who's playing like a top 10 quarterback in the league as a rookie. So they could surprise. I mean, that would be the other one. And the Giants are just out of this conversation. But I don't know. I figure a rookie quarterback, he's got to have some growing pains. So I'll go with Philly. Begrudgingly.
Yeah. I mean, because that's kind of the question. I think if you think it's a 12 to 14 win team that wins the division, it's Philly. If you think it's maybe a 10 win team that wins the division, 11 win team, then maybe that's Commanders. So I think the question is what wins the division, because if it has to be a lot of games, I don't think the Commanders win 12 to 14 games.
No,
but that's the question is, are the Eagles going to win enough games that they can easily pull ahead? Or if it gets down a little bit lower, then maybe the Commanders scoot in, because I agree with you. I don't think they win the division if they have to outright be a best team. But if the entire division is down this year, then they might be able to sneak in and get it. That's kind of more where you're looking with the Commanders, at least in my opinion, is that they could come in and get it if everyone else kind of falls down a little bit.
And it could be a down year for the division. It could be. I mean, obviously the Cowboys are struggling. The Eagles are inconsistent. They got talent, but they're inconsistent. They're all over the place. And of course, I expect a rookie quarterback to have some growing pains, and the Giants could just play spoiler. I mean, throughout the season, here and there. So it could be a down year for the division. Right now, like I said, I'm going with the Eagles. It's a good conversation because the Cowboys, with the way they've looked, and we'll get into it here in just a second, they have everybody rethinking their predictions and projections for the Cowboys. I am. I mean, I think I had them at 12, 11. I think I had them at 11 wins.
Yeah.
I'm rethinking that. I'm serious. I'm rethinking my 11 win. Right now they look like a 9-win team instead of being 11 wins.
The Cowboys are the weird one. Yeah, we can say we get into it because I think they're a couple of trades away from being a 12, 13 win team. It's just, do they make those moves?
Right. Like I said, right now they look more like a 9.
Oh, right now they look like a below 500 team.
Yeah.
Because anyone who can run the football can beat them.
As long as you're committed to it, you seem like you'll have a chance. If you just commit to it, you'll have a chance.
Not every team can run the football.
That's what I'm saying. But if you commit to it against the Cowboys, you got a shot. But if you can run it like the Ravens, they can run the ball.
Yeah,
we knew the Ravens were going to beat them. They barely beat them, but they beat them.
Yeah, they beat they barely beat him, but they also had at one point
they had controlled the game. They had controlled
lead.
the game the entire game. yeah. Like they just relaxed, and we have no idea why, and gave up the lead. But no, I'm with you. You're right about that. You could make that argument, and I think we'll hear from Jerry Jones. So we actually got some audio from Jerry Jones. Oh, we got some audio from Micah Parsons too. Do we have that? Oh, we're gonna get to that. That's good. The Micah Parsons audio is pretty. It's long, but it's pretty good. You can tell he is, man. You can tell honestly he's tormented by this a bit.
Yeah,
and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Can you tell he's tormented?
I can, but I didn't like what he said at all.
You didn't like what he said?
No, not one.
I don't know if I necessarily like what he said, but I can tell it's bothering him. I can tell.
Oh no, 100%.
I can tell that it is. Yes, you can tell that. That's kind of what I wanted to get across. But that's a good point.
I don't know.
Tell me what you did. We'll get into it. And you tell me what
I don't know where Micah
like
Parsons went to high school, but I don't think he's ever been a loser because he went to I don't know if he ever really was on it. Ever really was on a team that he felt like, oh no, this could be a loser. I don't know if he's ever had that experience, and this is so. It's right now. You feel like, man, we could never win another football game. Because you know how that feels. I can see that, and he's so good. Usually, he'll make his team good. Yeah, and you're right. No, that's fair. I haven't done the research, but that's a good point. Maybe that's why he's so tormented. That he sees it. The reality is, he's like, no, dude, we might be this bad. We might be below 500 bad, like a bad football team. I agree. That's a good point. And so I want to hear what after we play the audio, I want to hear what you didn't like that he said. But like I said, you'll hear, like I said, the torment. If you're a Cowboys fan, I'm sure you share that with him. And also we'll hear a little bit from Jerry Jones and Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy's starting to get snippy. Usually Mike McCarthy is really kind of amicable with the media, just kind of get along, everybody get along, go along kind of guy. He snapped back at a reporter recently. And I thought it was a fair question too, by the way. Yeah. It was not not a gotcha question. I thought the Jerry Jones question was a fair one that he answered snappy. I thought the Mike McCarthy question was a fair one. He answered snappy. And Micah Parsons seems very upset. I think everyone's a little on edge in Dallas right now.
That is fair. It seems like the whole organization, they're on edge. Matter of fact, this is what Jerry wanted though, didn't he? Didn't he want everybody kind of on edge and in contract years and that kind of thing?
He didn't want 1 and 2.
He don't want it to. Yeah, you want the different, the 3-0 or the 2-1 kind of edge, I guess. All right, let's. We'll get to that because I got some more nuggets about the Texans' performance versus the Minnesota Vikings. We got to dive into. Didn't realize how bad it was. Remember those 3rd and longs I brought over the Texans? Now I got some historical context for you. We'll do that. But first, let's get educated. Let's get updated. Let's get informed on all the top stories today with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their first game against the Mariners 6-1 yesterday, still leaving them needing 1 win in the series to clinch the division. Hunter Brown pitched 6 innings, striking out 8 and only allowing 1 run, but still picked up the loss as Houston could only put 4 hits together in the game. Yordan Alvarez missed the game and will be out the entire series with a right knee sprain as the Astros send Framber Valdez to the mound, hoping to win the division tonight. The Rangers open their series with the A's tonight with Nathan Eovaldi getting the start. This will be the final series played in the Oakland Coliseum before the A's relocate to Las Vegas next season. The Rangers are looking to finish the season on a positive note after going 4-6 in their last 10 games. And in the NFL, the Bills ran through the Jaguars 47-10 last night with Josh Allen scoring 4 touchdowns. And the Bengals fell to 0-3 after a 38-33 loss to the Commanders. Joe Burrow threw for 324 yards and 3 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough against the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, who scored 3 total TDs in the game. And that's your Horn Headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. I appreciate those. Also, Patrick started out the show with a great message. And Patrick, I'd love for you to give the folks that message again about the folks over at HAM.
Yes, it is Ham Day, myham.org. That's my HAAM. It is the Health Alliance for Austin musicians. They help get affordable health care to the Austin musicians in this town. They have personally been pivotal in keeping my friends healthy and some of them alive, people that I really care about and people that you know in the music scene. And you may not realize some of these artists that you've seen and that you listen to their music and you've been lucky enough to go see around town. What they've been through over time. And sometimes these guys, when Ham came in, they hadn't been to a doctor in 20 years and stuff like that, and just hadn't been able to get any health care. And so being a musician for a living, you're already kind of pushing it week to week and month to month, trying to make your bills. You don't have money if anything major happens, and Ham really takes care of those people. It is a great cause, and today is a great day to donate, not only because there's so many bands playing all over town, which you can get all that info at myham.org, but also there's going to be a lot of corporate entities that are matching donations today, so your dollar can go much further today than it can on other days. So if you have the ability to donate, today is a great day to donate to Ham and support the vibrant local music scene and keep Austin music what it is here in town, where it's different than what it used to be, but it's still, there's a lot of great musicians, and it's a vibrant part of what makes Austin Austin.
You are literally keeping the Austin music scene healthy.
Yes.
If you don't, yes. You are literally keeping the human beings alive who are obviously creating the great music here and the great music culture in Austin. No, it's fantastic. There will be over 200 plus performances across Central Texas. So if you're out and about, it's a good chance you'll run into. You're like, hey man, why is there live music here? Then that's what it is. So great message there, Patrick. Appreciate you bringing that to everybody's attention. That's good stuff. All right. I hate to segue from such a positive message. This is a negative one, Cowboys, but we got to do it. So here's a few stats, and we'll hear from Micah Parsons, and we'll hear from Jerry Jones, and hear from Mike McCarthy here in a second. But here's some historical context about how bad the Cowboys' rush defense and run offense has been. So let's start with the rushing yards allowed. Let's start with run defense. They've allowed 5.4 yards per carry. That's the worst average through 3 games since 1979. So Rod B wasn't alive the last time the Cowboys defense allowed this many yards per carry through 3 games. They have allowed 557 rushing yards, the most through 3 games since 1963. This is per ESPN, by the way. So the most rushing yards since 1963. The most yards per carry they've allowed through the first 3 games since 1979, and they've given up 8 rushing touchdowns, the most in franchise history through 3 games. It goes deeper. The Dallas Cowboys defense allowed 274 rushing yards against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. It was only the 9th time in franchise history that they got gashed for so much yardage on the ground. Strangely enough, little trivia question. They have 1 win, actually. They are 1 in, how about this? They're 1 in 8 in those 9 worst rush defense performances in franchise history in a single game. The 1 win was 1984 against the Chicago Bears. That's pretty wild. I can't believe they won that game. I'd love to go see the box score of the game and see how they won it. Anyway, but I digress. The Dallas Cowboys, if you go look at the rushing yardage margin, basically, the Cowboys had a rushing yards margin of negative 223 against the Baltimore Ravens, meaning they only had 51 rushing yards. Baltimore had 274. It was the 3rd worst performance in Dallas Cowboys franchise history in that respect, in terms of the rushing margin between the 2 teams. Let's go to rushing offense for the Cowboys. The Cowboys have 221 rushing yards through the first 3 games of the season, the 3rd fewest amount of rushing yards they've had through the first 3 games of any season in franchise history. Those other 2 seasons, they finished 7-9 and 1-15. Yeah, that's not good. And I'm starting to wonder if the Cowboys if their offense, period. Now, because the running game we know has been a deficiency for them, for a couple of years. But even with Tony Pollard there last season, it was because of the injury. And then they kind of overcommitted themselves to the pass, and they became not a one-dimensional team, but they were a pass-first team. And then, of course, losing Tony Pollard and them not having a lot of talent or playmakers or difference makers in the backfield, that has led to them having the 3rd worst rushing offense in the league right now. But here's something I saw from the game. Dak Prescott threw into a tight window in that game against Baltimore on over 35% of his attempts. That was the highest rate in a game since week 4 of 2018. Remember in 2018, that was why before they made the Amari Cooper trade. That was when they figured they were going to do wide receiver by committee. Remember that? I remember that experiment, which failed miserably for the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there because they still have CeeDee Lamb, my point being, but there's something off about the Texas Coast offense right now. It's not clicking, even and their passing game isn't clicking the way it's supposed to. Guys, they're not necessarily getting enough separation downfield with the receivers. And CeeDee Lamb, of course, is one of the best receivers in the game, but Dak's having to throw through a lot of tight windows. Dak's doing a great job, and I think Dak looks good. So I'm not saying something's wrong with Dak. I'm just saying I think the offense right now is a little off. Right now, it doesn't. Right now, it doesn't seem like there's synchronicity right now in the passing game, which may just takes a while because CD wasn't there.
I think there's
CD's the catalyst for it.
I think the fact that CD wasn't there is probably a piece of it. I think the fact that there's another year of video of it and film on it,
too.
that you basically know exactly what they're going to do, and they don't have another option.
They don't have a running one. That's
but it's like they're going to go to CeeDee Lamb, and so you can play one-on-one. And if you win man against Cooks and Tolbert, and Ferguson's kind of been in and out of injuries, and if you can win man against those guys, then that offense is dead because there's no other, like there's nothing else. If you can't win those battles, and you're not Tolbert and Cooks are not going to win the battles every time.
I agree with that right now. And Ferguson, that's why I said Ferguson's so important for this offense, because I think he's a guy that actually can win his matchups, depending on who they have on him. But man, how about this? I'll give you another stat because this is how crazy it is, how deficient the Cowboys are in terms of their running game. The Cowboys are currently the only team in the NFL that doesn't have a quarterback or a running back with a run over 10 yards.
Exactly.
Their longest run of the season is a 12-yard run by CeeDee Lamb. Rico Dowdle has one 10-yard run exactly. Nobody else has touched double digits on a carry.
And I don't know of one team that is setting up the box, a heavy box for them.
Nope.
No, they're all light box.
Which is why the windows are tighter on the back end,
yes,
because they can devote numbers to the back end.
Yes.
Yeah, because you don't have to stack the box at all. That's they said the rate. How about this? If you remove the position filter from the stat database, every team except for the Cowboys and the Raiders have a run over 12 yards this season. To your point, back to your Raiders take about Zamir White. Zamir White has a 12-yard run, and CeeDee Lamb has a 12-yard run for those teams. But they're the only two teams that don't have a rush.
But the Raiders
right
fall into the same damn thing as the Cowboys, and it's not Josh Jacobs, it's the system. No, the system works. We don't need the players. We can make it work with our system. It's the players. You need at least somebody in there.
It's a little bit of both.
You can't say we have this really, really good running back that led the league in rushing, but it's just our system. No, it's both things. It's both. You need both, but you don't have one of them right now. You have to get the
Shanahan system or anything, so you ain't. You can't just plug and play.
And then you're not even drafting running backs every year. You're not pulling guys up. You drafted Deuce Vaughn, who is a boutique back. He's not a back that you can use all the time. So Rico Dowdle has been your only back for the last 2 seasons that has been like a back that you're trying to get to take that next level. That's your one guy. And so when he doesn't work, the entire play falls apart. And that's been the Cowboys' MO is everything's based on Mozzie Smith being a great defensive tackle this season. He's not. It's the worst run defense in the league. Everything's based on Rico Dowdle taking a step forward. He doesn't. It's a bad run offense. You can't base everything in the NFL off of one player in a hope that they're all of a sudden going to take this turn.
Hope is not a strategy. I always said about the Cowboys, but for some reason, they use a lot of it in their business model. It's like, all right, we hope he works out, and it's like, no, there needs to be a contingency plan.
Yeah,
assume the worst at the times, right? You plan, you hope for the best, but you got to plan for the worst.
And all that being said, they're a couple of players away from having a completely different looking team. They're not.
Last season, they had more all pros than everybody in the league.
But I'm not even saying all pros.
But my point is, this is not a team bereft of talent.
No.
They got talent. There's talent on this team.
But right? I mean, but again, like, go make a cake and have no flour. the cake's going to be bad. I don't care how many other ingredients you put in the cake. It's not going to be good without flour, right?
I agree.
So your defense ain't going to be good if you can't stop the middle of if they can just walk through the defensive line every single time and no one touches them until they get through it. It doesn't matter. So you have to go get that guy. You can't say, well, we have all pro defensive backs. We got 2 of them. You go, cool. Well, they're just not going to throw it. What are you going to do when they don't throw it?
Let's hear from Micah Parsons, because Micah Parsons shares your frustration. It's a little bit long here, but I thought it perfectly summed up kind of the torment that Cowboys fans are feeling right now in regards to the Cowboys rush defense. Here's what Micah Parsons had to say after the game.
We don't need everyone to be Superman. We don't need no Supermans at all. We just need 11 guys playing together. Yeah. And right now, it's just not in unison.
How surprising was this?
I mean preaching something all week. Everyone's in the locker room saying we're going to do what we got to do, and everyone's going to be accountable. Then when you come out, we're just like, how are we getting gas? We're not being accountable. We're not set right. It's just like, the game going to come down to that third down. If we do what we're supposed to do, we win the game. It's just like, at what cost are we just going to keep doing this to ourselves?
Did they do anything different, or they did exactly what you expected, but they just did what they did?
They did exactly what I expected. Man. Motion to 42, they're going to run to 42, Ricard. I mean, it's plain as day. I mean, we know when it's true pass it. Them guys is in damn near 4-point stands coming out the ball. So it's just like, at one point, are we just going to knuckle up and just play?
Right. How does that feel?
I mean, for me, it sucks. I mean, it's a long year. I would say I never experienced something like this.
What makes you think the run defense can be fixed, and where's the confidence there?
I mean, my confidence is within, the organization, because we got to get it right. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a winning organization. I want to uphold that standard. But at the same time, everyone has to uphold the standard. And, I think I'm confident, in my faith. My faith. I just think we're being tested right now, man.
How do you not get people to play Superman, like you said, or try to make those super heroic plays?
Bro, I have no idea. Like, I'm going to be real, like I said, like, I really believe we're being tested. I'm being tested, but it has to come together. It's humbling. At your all-time high, God always finds a way to put you back down. And right now, we're low. And everyone has to stay strong within their faith and say, at one point, are we going to trust in God, trusting ourselves, trusting the team, trusting the framework of the defense? Because any cost, like, some of the stuff is, at one point, like I said, it's just us being us. So when is the faith and trust going to be there?
All right, that's the frustration of Micah Parsons. He does say us and we, does put himself in it, but I think he should take more ownership from it himself. But you can tell that it's tormenting him, man. It bothers him.
It is, but
what didn't you like about it?
Because it's not God testing you. You have a bad system and not the right players. This has nothing to do with your faith, man. This has nothing to do with real effort. This has to do with you and everyone else on your team not doing what you're supposed to do. This isn't something that this is like when people move to Tornado Alley and then say, God keeps taking our life with it. No, you moved to Tornado Alley. There's going to be tornadoes. You run a defense with no defensive tackles and a scheme where you keep rushing the quarterback. They're going to run on you. Things have to change, and saying we just need to work harder and believe in it, that's not the case. 2 games in a row, it wasn't effort. It was the fact that you ran a bad scheme against a team that knows how to beat that scheme. So I get all that. I'm not saying don't have faith. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying to pretend that it's just okay and we're just being tested right now. You're being tested because you're doing things wrong. Change what you're doing, and then maybe things could be different, but you have to change what you're doing.
I think what he's saying is the guys are not trusting the system and trusting that they're going to do their jobs, like the players are going to do their job. So they're trying to. That's why he started out talking about guys trying to be Superman.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do their job and somebody else's job. So if your job is you're supposed to fill the gap, right? You're supposed to. The B gap is your responsibility. why are you trying to fill the A gap and the B gap? See, because that's why the B gap is not open, because you were trying to fill it. I think that's why he's talking about guys trusting the system, doing your job, and trusting that I, as a teammate, will do my job. And then that's how the system works. So I think that's what he's talking about. But in terms of the faith and the guy testing him, I think some people just, they view everything through that lens, and nothing wrong with that. If that's how you view the world. So I think it's just him. He's probably a person that's kind of led by his faith and views everything through that lens.
Which is fine.
You know
I get that.
Yeah.
If your solution to this is, well, if we just keep our head down. No, the same thing is going to happen. If you don't make changes, the same thing will happen over and over and over again. So I get you can say we got to not play. I don't know who's playing hero ball on the Cowboys. I know that your D tackles are getting pushed around and creating giant gaps that then you're missing tackles after.
I will say that that's not an issue that Micah can help, really. That the fact that they just
I agree.
are deficient at D tackle and don't have run stopping D tackles.
I agree.
That is a Jerry Jones issue. Not even a Mike McCarthy can help that. As a matter of fact, and I don't know if Jerry Jones is going to spend the money to go get a real run stuffing D tackle, because as a lot of people pointed out, and you did yesterday as well, he wouldn't even spend the money to go get a running back. Matter of fact, here we have the audio of Jerry Jones here quickly. This is Jerry Jones getting to what the point you made yesterday about, hey, the Cowboys running game wouldn't be so bad if he wasn't so cheap. And the Derrick Henry option was out there because Derrick Henry said in the offseason, hey, I wanted to go to Dallas, and Dallas just wouldn't match the number. Here is Jerry Jones when he was asked by the media, hey, why didn't you spend more money on the running back position? Why didn't you spend more money to get Derrick Henry? Look at what he did versus your defense. Here's what Jerry Jones had to say.
I don't know. Why can't you buy a mansion when you live in a different kind of house? We couldn't afford it. We can't make that all fit. It's simple as that.
Simple as that. I know that frustrated you, Patrick, and I frustrated a lot of Cowboys fans yesterday.
Being told
they had to watch it.
Being told you can't afford a running back by a guy who can't name another type of house than a mansion. It's been that long since he's not lived in a mansion that he can't say anything else. He just goes, something poor people live in. I don't know.
No, I honestly, to me, because I agree with you, by the way. But I think to me, it's more egregious that you're paying like $5 million to a third string quarterback who you ultimately know is not, he's not going to be part of your future. And that's a luxury. You can go get a third string quarterback. Don't need to cost you what Trey Lance is costing you. So if you want a third string quarterback, you can have one that's more cost effective. And that could have been money. Just being practical, pragmatic. You could have obviously put toward the running back position.
Or I mean,
how much
you could not be in the bottom third of the league every single year in cash spending. You could do that too. You could spend the money and then not claim that no one else can do it, because every single other team in the NFL can and does, and you don't.
Yeah, they don't. That's just not how the Cowboys operate.
So, but that's not a can't. That's a won't. Those are two different things.
Yeah, no, but it's not. But they've never operated that way. I will give them that is just not what they do. So I will say that's not how they operate. It's never been how they.
Cool.
We've gone back 12 to 15 years, and the Cowboys don't spend cash on players. They just don't. So we would be asking them to change their stripes, if you will. To
try and win a Super Bowl, because you haven't won one since Jimmy Johnson built your team.
Jerry wants to win it, but he wants to win it his way.
Cool. He ain't gonna.
And I think he's willing to die without another one to win it his way.
He is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with that. Can we hear from a snippy Mike McCarthy real quick before we get to the break?
Yes.
Mike McCarthy was asked about the players speaking out. DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott has talked about, hey, get off the bandwagon, get off the bandwagon. That's kind of his new thing. He was actually on the way to the locker room after the game, talking to himself, and he said that. But here is Mike McCarthy. He's asked, hey, your players are speaking out loud about the frustration in the locker room. How do you feel about that? Here's what Mike McCarthy had to say.
The Harris Forward Star Telegram. I know you said you guys don't have a ton of time for corrections this week, but with Jordan Lewis talking about details, Michael Parsons last night talking about accountability, how do you kind of work those conversations in this?
Pretty dramatic there, Nick. I tell you must practice that one. Jeez, I mean, hey, Thursday schedule. I mean, that's what we're on. I mean, it's we didn't win the game, so I think that's part of where we are. I mean, so yeah, I think they do a good job of answering your questions. It's emotional after the game, so I'm not ever going to referee emotion on the field or after a game.
I got those Jordan Lewis comments they're talking about too. I'm going to send those to Patrick, and we'll play those a little bit later on. All right, we come back. We'll get into the Texans. I got a couple of nuggets I'm going to share with you guys from Texas, and we'll talk about Texas, the Texas defense. We'll hear from Sark talking about that Texas defense, and I'll share with you an observation that I saw watching film that really shows you why this creative collaboration between PK and Johnny Nansen is so unique. All that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime on the Horn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some. I'll get to some Texans and some Texas conversation. All right, start with the Texans and just continuing to review their dumpster fire of a performance versus the Minnesota Vikings. I told you guys 3rd and long. They had to stay out of 3rd and long. I was like, they got to stay out of 3rd and long. If they get in 3rd and long a lot, they're going to lose that game. They were in 3rd and long a lot. And I went over the numbers yesterday about how often they were in 3rd and long because they were in 3rd. They had 14 third downs. They were in 3rd and 7+ on 13 of the 14 third downs. And I was like, literally, the one thing I said, you have to avoid this to beat Minnesota. And not only could they not avoid it, all right, they were not only in 3rd and 7+, guys, they were in 3rd and 10+ yards to go, more than any team in the NFL since 2022. That's how bad it was. I knew it was bad. I didn't realize it was that bad. That's how they faced 3rd and 10+ yards. By the way, last season, I'll give props. CJ Stroud led the NFL in 3rd and 10+ yard completions to convert those situations. He led the NFL. He was unbelievable. But he shouldn't have been in that many situations like that. You're trying to avoid putting that much pressure on a young quarterback to have to convert 3rd and 10+ yards to go. You know how tough that is? Because that is, I mean, the odds start flipping in favor of the defense at 3rd and 7+ yards to gain. That's why it's called 3rd and long. 3rd and 10+ yards is 3rd and really long. That's 3rd and a longest. And they were in that situation more than any team in the NFL since 2022. And why? Not only because of the pre-snap penalties we talked about, they had 11 penalties for 88 yards. A lot of pre-snap penalties on the offensive line too. But they had, how about this? CJ Stroud, they had they only averaged 5 net yards on 2nd downs versus Minnesota. Also a reason you end up in 3rd and really, really long. 5 net yards. Sounds like what? Yeah, that's how discombobulated that offense was versus Brian Flores' defense. And I went back and watched it. That defense was some freaky stuff that Brian Flores was throwing out there, man. It was, like I said, it was some real exotic, crazy, wild stuff. I saw one down where he had dime defense out there. By the way, nobody's playing more dime defense, which is 6 DBs, than Brian Flores. They're throwing out way more dime defense than they did last season. It's unbelievable. In the first 2 weeks of the season, the Vikings led the league with 40 snaps of dime personnel. They had just 191 snaps of dime the entire season in 2023. And this dude's throwing out 6 DB looks. But anyway, he had a 6 DB look they threw out there against CJ Stroud. There was no D tackles on the field. They didn't have 1 D tackle on the field. It was a dime and essentially their version of kind of a NASCAR package. The rushers were Cashman, Jonathan Grenard, Pat Jones, Jihad Ward, and Andrew Van Ginkel. And Jones, he's actually a guy that can play multiple gaps, but they're using versatility and they're using some real funky looks. And, CJ Stroud didn't respond really well to him. And I think he'll get better versus the blitz. And that's the thing about it. Brian Flores is so unorthodox now because you can't study 2023 Brian Flores film. I heard some NFL insiders talking about this. You can't study his 2023 film because right now it's nothing like his 2024 tendencies. Like in 2023, Brian Flores' Vikings defense led the NFL in percentage of snaps with 3 or fewer pass rushers. And they led the NFL and of snaps with 6 or more pass rushers. This season, Flores has called defenses with 4 pass rushers on 60% of the Viking snaps. But last season, they led the NFL with snaps with 3 or fewer pass rushers or 6 or more pass rushers. And they avoided pretty much 4 pass rushers. This season, he's mostly 4 pass rushers, and they sent 5 pass rushers on 19% of their snaps. That's a radical shift. And like I said, they're playing more dime now than any team in the league. Last year, they only played 191 snaps of it the entire season. And you throw out the fact that CJ Stroud, against CJ Stroud, they blitzed him in the first half 54% of the time. They blitzed him in the second half 27%. And he's just all over the place. It is, like I said, he's like a warlock out there, man. It is he's a diabolical genius right now, and he's just on a heater. Somebody will find a way to expose him, and then the copycat rule of the NFL applies. Everybody will start copying that model. Right now, teams are just having a tough time trying to figure it out, and it's working really good versus the McShanahan offenses. That's why it's really compelling, because the McShanahan offense are taking over football because they're the most efficient, effective offense right now in modern football. And yet Brian Flores has figured out a way to, stun them a little bit, to, confuse and discombobulate them, whether it be the offensive coordinators calling the plays or the quarterbacks who are running these offenses. Very compelling stuff. Okay, that's Rod's rant. I wanted to get to Texas football conversation there, but we ran out of time. So I promise you we will do that next hour. We'll get into Texas football. I want to talk about the Texas defense. We'll hear from Sark talking about that Texas defense. We'll do that next hour. I promise you. I'll give you my observations about one of the things that makes that defense unique. I just talked about that Brian Flores defense against the Texans, playing more dime than anybody else in the league, and having that package against CJ Stroud where they ran dime with no D tackles. How about I make that connection back to the University of Texas? We'll talk about it when we get it until the other side on next hour. But next segment, we'll get into what the facts, what the stats. I got a bunch of those to share with you from the NFL realm and also from the college football realm. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for What the Facts, What the Stats right here on the Rodcast. All right, you know what? And I've said this before, there are certain brands, companies, entities, I'm just going to trust because they've earned my trust, right? In terms of how consistent they've been, like when it comes to, fried chicken, fried nuggets. Hey, I'll trust Chick-fil-A with them damn nuggets because they've earned my trust. All right. I'll trust, honestly, I'll trust how clutch Patrick Mahomes is. He's earned my trust in that regard. When it's a clutch situation, I'll bet on Mahomes. If I lose, that's okay. I'll be right more oftentimes than not. I'll trust the Green Bay Packers when it comes to quarterbacks. I trust that brand. Green Bay Packers coaching up a quarterback. I'll trust it. When Malik Willis got the starting nod for the Packers after the injury to Jordan Love, I thought, oh man, it's gonna be a rough patch for him. The Packers are 2-0 without their starting quarterback. I mean, the Packers. Anybody know how to coach up QBs? It's the Packers. Everybody thought Malik Willis was just and I'm not saying that he is a starting quarterback at all, but everybody thought he was just a lost cause. This guy would never be able to, even play at the NFL level at a competent, capable level. Man, dude, he was, and I'm not saying he's great, but he completed 85% of his passes in that game 2 games ago against Indy and against Tennessee, completed 68% of his passes. Now he's not throwing for a lot. I think he threw for a little over 200 yards and 122 yards in one game, but no interceptions. One touchdown, passer rating of 126 and 120. 10 yards per attempt, 8 yards per attempt. He did rush. They did use him in the run game too. He had 6 rushing attempts in each game for 41 and for 73 yards. That's pretty good. But it's just they know how to develop a quarterback. They know how to. They really do. They know how, whatever their methodology is, they know how to get the best out of a quarterback. They have been for decades, and they did again with Malik Willis. Nobody cares about it, and the numbers aren't mind blowing, but they're winning games. With Malik Willis.
His numbers were better than Will Levis, who was the quarterback that the Titans decided they were going to go with over Malik Willis.
It's crazy. That's amazing, man.
That's got to be hard as a general manager, coach, or anybody like that when you have a guy that you decide to trade off for kind of table scraps.
Yeah,
and then he comes back and beats you.
Actually, I didn't even think about that storyline. You're right.
3 games later. 3 games. It wasn't like, well, it's been a year and a half. Like Geno beating the Jets. Yeah, but it's been a while. Like you got coached up, but right off the bat, now. Granted, we can still see Will Levis's ceiling is probably still higher than Malik Willis's ceiling.
You decided he couldn't win in the league, and he just beat you. So
yes.
Like, well, he can win. Yeah. He definitely can win. We just weren't. That's your realization that okay, you weren't maximizing his talent and using him the right way. And you have to accept that as a man in the mirror moment. Like, okay, well then we didn't know how to use him, but they do. So they're better than us in that area. And by the way, the Packers are better than everybody in that area. So I guess there's no shame in that.
And that defense looks pretty good too for the Packers. So that's helping out.
It does. And remember, they got a new DC. You got that guy from Boston College as a new DC. So they got a new DC too. So Packers just slowly doing their thing, being consistent. But I thought that was pretty interesting to bring that up. He would be ranked because he didn't have enough passes right now to qualify, but he'd be second in yards per drop back and EPA per drop back. He'd be third in ESPN's total quarterback rating if he had enough passes to qualify. So throwing it out there. Also, how about this? Because I was watching that game because my wife's a big 49ers fan, and of course I follow Shano. Man, the 49ers blew that lead versus the Rams. They had control of that game. They had like one of the worst 5 to 7 minute stretches to close a game I've ever seen. I mean, it was just disastrous in so many ways. They had a disastrous PI. I mean, every phase of the game pretty much melted down for the 49ers. It really did. And it was how about this number? According to Associated Press, it was the 5th time that Shanahan's 49ers have blown a double-digit lead in the 4th quarter. Only John Harbaugh's Ravens have blown more of those leads since 2017. So, and remember, Now it's in the fourth quarter, but he's had double-digit leads in the Super Bowl, as I've told you, over Patrick Mahomes, multiple occasions. The first one was in the fourth quarter, though. They had a double-digit lead on him in the fourth quarter in that first Super Bowl they met in, and just could not hold it. All right, there you go. So that's some what the facts, what the one more. So talk about Patrick Mahomes. How about this one? I gave this earlier. I assumed, and I was wrong. So when I'm wrong, I'll admit it. You guys know that. I was wrong about this. I assumed that Kansas City offense would now become a vertical offense, and they're going to start adding the verticality back and the deep shots back in the offense. Wrong. Now, they added the pieces to do that. They drafted Xavier Worthy. Hollywood Brown is still dealing with injuries. Rasheed Rice is a sense. So you would thought, okay, now they're going to slowly but surely start throwing it deeper downfield. No. Average depth of target for Patrick Mahomes by season, 9.1 in 2018, 8.8 in 2019, 8.3 in 2020, 7.3 in 2021, 7.3 in 2022, 6.5 in 2023, and 5.2 in 2024 so far. His average depth of target is 5.2 yards down the field. That's crazy. It's a little bit more than a check down. His average depth of target, and people think, oh, that's against two high safeties. Nope. Against single high safeties, he's only averaging 6.1. His average depth of target, which is down from last year when it was 6.8 versus single high looks. Versus two high looks, 4.6 is his average depth of target. That is as dink and dunk of an offense as I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes in college or pro. And hell, it doesn't matter. It's working. They're winning games. It's amazing. All right, we come back. We'll get into some Texas football conversation here from Steve Sarkisian. He'll give us an update on Quinn Ewers and his status with the abdominal strain. We'll also hear from Sark talking about Arch Manning and what he thought about Arch Manning's overall evaluation from his first start. We'll talk about the Monday Night Football games last night. All of that and more. We are loaded right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday here on the Rodcast. That's when Patrick plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him. One of my favorite musically themed days of the week. Also, Patrick, who is the Idealionaire, comes up with all the musically themed days of the week, but also comes up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, which is always a great conversation starter. Patrick, let the people know what the topic is for the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Big Fat Poll of the day today. After 3 weeks, who do you think will win the NFC East? Currently, the Eagles in the lead with 49% of the vote, then the Commanders with 35%, 16% for the Cowboys, and nobody has touched the Giants yet.
Yeah, the Giants are terrible. I picked the Eagles. I just figure Cowboys, it's hard for me to vote for a team with a rush defense that's the worst in the NFL and a rushing offense that's third worst in the NFL. So that's just two deficiencies that are way too glaring and almost tragic for the Cowboys. So I pick the Eagles. Also, there hasn't been a repeat champion in the NFC East for 20 years. So the Cowboys won it last year. Makes me think, man, it's time for another champion. Unless we get the repeat champion, something we haven't had in 20 years in the NFC East. And I don't know about the Commanders. I like the Commanders. We'll get into them, talk about them a little bit based off what we saw last night. I like the quarterback, Jaden Daniels, though. And I always said Dan Quinn, he hires good. He hires well if you go look at his resume. So I think he put together a good coaching staff. I think he might have done it again. So we'll talk about the Commanders. I don't know if they're going to win the division with the combination of a rookie quarterback and a coach first year with that team and Dan Quinn. But they are no easy win. They used to, I think a lot of fans assume they'd be a pushover for the Cowboys. Not going to be the case because they might be able to run it on the Cowboys. Well, everybody might be able to run it on the Cowboys. We'll talk about that. But first, we'll get into some Texas football conversation. We'll hear from Sark giving us an update on the Quinn Ewers abdominal strain and his status for Saturday coming up versus Mississippi State, their SEC opener. So we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about Quinn and also talking about Arch a little bit. And then we'll also get into the slate of games last night. Washington coming away with the big win, as well as Buffalo. Looks like the two starting quarterbacks of the two winning teams last night may be your front runners for some NFL accolades this season. We'll discuss that. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their first game against the Mariners 6-1 yesterday, still leaving them needing one win in the series to clinch the division. Hunter Brown pitched 6 innings, striking out 8 and only allowing 1 run, but still picked up the loss as Houston could only put together 4 hits in the game. Yordan Alvarez missed the game and will be out the entire series with a right knee sprain as the Astros send Framber Valdez to the mound, hoping to win the division tonight. The Rangers open their series with the A's tonight with Nathan Eovaldi getting the start. This will be the final series played in the Oakland Coliseum before the A's relocate to Las Vegas next season. The Rangers are looking to finish the season on a positive note after going 4-6 in the last 10 games. And in the NFL, the Bills ran through the Jaguars 47-10 last night with Josh Allen scoring 4 touchdowns. And the Bengals fell to 0-3 after a 38-33 loss to the Commanders. Joe Burrow threw for 324 yards and 3 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough against the Commanders and Jane Daniels, who scored 3 total TDs in the game. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. We appreciate those. All right, first, let's get the update on Quinn Ewers' status, and we'll talk about the games from last night. Sark, he did address the media, as he does every Monday during the season for his Monday media availability, and he talked about a lot of things, but we'll play that audio for you coming up when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. But first and foremost, he did address the injury of Quinn Ewers, and here is Sark giving an update on the injury status of his starting quarterback, Quinn Ewers.
Quinn practiced today. I would say if I had to put a report out, he'd be questionable for Saturday, but we'll see how he goes throughout the week and monitor how he responds to tomorrow coming off of today's practice. And DeAndre Moore practiced today as well.
All right. Sorry, didn't mean to disrespect DeAndre Moore, because he practiced too, and that's a good sign. But they're really deep at wide receiver, really deep at quarterback too. So Sark did say Quinn practiced yesterday. He's going to practice today. That's a good sign for him being on track to play. You got to practice so you can be on track to play. I imagine they're probably splitting first team reps right now. I think I'm still leaning toward Texas. I would, if I was the head coach in Sark's position, I would keep Quinn out for one more game, just to err on the side of caution, to give him as much time as possible to heal, because you're not going to have a stretch like this where you're going to have that luxury any other time throughout the season. And it's a non-contact injury, so those are always, kind of weird and freaky. So I would give him another week, and you have the bye week, so you'd have essentially 2 more weeks for Quinn to heal. And to me, that's probably where I would go. But I will admit that the Jaden Blue usage and the Jaden Blue ULM game made me rethink maybe Sark. There are other variables Sark is considering when looking at a player's health and when they're going to play. Now, Jaden Blue and Quinn are not the same thing, but he did give Jaden Blue, considering the depth issues at running back and considering Jaden Blue was coming off getting a little bit nicked up as well, 25 rushes and 7 targets in that game versus ULM, by the way, of all opponents. So I think maybe there is a more aggressive approach from Sark that maybe is part of the culture of the team, that if you can go, we don't play injured guys, but everybody plays hurt, and we play through being hurt. That's part of the culture of a really good, healthy football team. Guys play hurt because you're going to be hurt from game 1 pretty much to the end of the season, and battling through that type of adversity is also part of the culture. Also, there are variables of guys want to showcase their ability for the NFL and for scouts out there, and that's, I'm sure, part of some of the method and the usage, and also the consideration for how you're going to play guys. The goals and Sark even talked about the goals of Quinn Ewers are still intact. He didn't mention specifically what the goals were. I'm assuming the goal is winning a championship. I'm assuming the goal is probably for Quinn. Maybe the goal is a Heisman. I don't know. I'm sure he shared with Sark his goals individually and also the team-oriented goals. So I think now I am willing to accept that Sark is considering multiple variables in this decision, not just the overall health of Quinn. Is he as healthy as possible? That's the only thing that matters. That is the most important thing, but I don't know if it's the only variable being considered after I watched what they did with Jaden Blue versus ULM. Because if it was all about keeping guys safeguarded and bubble wrapped and on a pitch count and protected throughout the season, then we wouldn't have seen Jaden Blue get 25 rushes versus ULM and 7 targets. There are other things being considered.
Yeah, there is. And I mean, I'll even go into, I'm sure there's something to be said about his recruiting and being able to walk into a room and say, we will discuss everything. We'll talk with the parents. We'll talk with the family. We'll do what's right by the kids. And we'll do. And when I tell you a promise that you're the starting quarterback, as long as you can go, you're the starting quarterback. I'm not going to pull you out any games for rest or anything else. If you can go, you can go. And if I tell you the starting quarterback or whatever, that's so I think there's part of that too. But I'll ask you this: are you surprised that he practiced yesterday?
No, I'm not surprised, because I know I was a player because of Quinn.
Yeah,
I remember me as a player, and I remember as a player, I'm like, no, I'm going back. I remember in a game, a trainer, like, I hurt my knee, and they put a sleeve on it, and they were examining it, and he's like, oh man, it's a little wobbly and shaky, and I was like, man, I'm going back out there, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
I mean, your opinion is great, I appreciate it, but give me my helmet, I'm going back out. If I can go, I'm going. And that was it. I mean, there is a warrior culture that you do want to exist in your locker room, and warriors play through pain. Warriors play hurt.
Oh, 100%.
And so there's some of that, and I know for Quinn, that's why it doesn't surprise me that he's like, no, I'm ready to go Monday. I'm ready to go.
But I'm asking more
in
the sense of when you talk about giving him the rest and everything and giving him that time with a non-contact injury, is there a little bit of you that says, well, maybe if you're Sark, maybe maybe you don't make him go a full week of practice, and you say, well, let's wait on it. Let's try and trot you back out and kind of ease you in on a Tuesday. And then by Wednesday, we'll make the decision. We go. But if he's going, and we don't know if he went full. He said he practiced. He didn't say if he went full bore, but he went on a Monday. That's saying
on a Monday.
We're expecting, like, we're going to go out there and start trying to ramp you up. And so you may get hurt in practice. You may go, like, that's why I'm saying it's a little surprising of if we're going to say he's going to sit him out. I mean, he's already practicing.
Yeah, you would want you said you should be resting them.
Yes.
If
you want to rest and get better, then you can't be practicing too.
Yeah, they're not rest is not necessarily now part of the recovery. Maybe last week was all rest, and now he's already practicing. Yeah. And I'm with you. You have to push him a little bit in practice to see, because that's the whole point, right? You push him a little bit to see, all right, how long in terms of the pain tolerance can he go until it really starts to hurt. What is the capacity for him to re-injure himself? Like, is that something that he can do? Is it likely? Like, you got to, and that's something you have to, obviously talk to your trainers about. And so I don't know, but you're right. Him practicing tells me that there's more of a chance that he's going to play.
Yeah. He practiced on Monday.
He's practicing on Monday. That tells me and I know you got to practice to play, but him practicing that early tells me that maybe he's trending toward, starting versus Mississippi State. And like I said, the Jaden Blue thing, I did not see him getting 25 rushes and 7 targets in that game. And the fact that he got that type of usage in that game versus ULM, it just shows me, or at least it tells me, Sark is he's not putting guys on pitch counts. He's not. There's no bubble wrap approach, and that's a position that we all agree should be bubble wrap. He's like, no, I know bubble wrap. No. Jaden Blue was playing in the fourth. He played in the fourth quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter of the game versus ULM, and I would have told you, even at halftime, I'd have been like, oh, Jaden Blue definitely not going to be playing in the fourth quarter. He was out there.
Look, if you would have told me Jaden Blue was 100% healthy, hadn't even missed a snap, I still would have thought he would have got 25 carries against ULM.
Exactly.
That's your number one back. So let's put it that way. At 25 carries and 7 targets?
Yeah. That's a lot of work. Versus ULM. You told me that's versus Georgia. I've been like, yeah, already saddle them up.
Yeah.
But you're like versus ULM. So I think that's that. There are more variables at play than, hey, let's try to get him as healthy as possible. No, there's something else here. And you know what? Sark has been making all the right decisions. My thought process would be I want Quinn as healthy as possible. But like I said, Quinn has his own goals. Sark has his own goals. And there's a culture to protect as well. And you cannot have a culture of fragility on a football team. You got to have a warrior culture where everybody understands, like, no, that's our leader and he fights through pain. Yeah, that's the way it is. He ain't injured. He's hurt. And we all hurt.
And exactly. And I think you want to see too with an injury like that, is he pulling up on throws? Does he still have the arm strength, or is he is his motion still correct? Or is he, like when you run, because when you run with a limp, you ain't going to run right. And the same concept is if your abs are going to be hurting, if you have an abdominal injury and you're throwing the football, are you still setting your feet, planning, getting that motion, rotating through your body and getting everything you need to make a solid throw? Or sometimes every 5th throw, are you pulling up? Start to see that and go, well, no, I can't put you out there, because now you're risking throwing interceptions. You're risking getting us in a bad position because you are forcing things and you can't, you're physically are stepping back on it. Versus if he goes out there and doesn't.
I agree with you. But my thing would be, if you see that, then you have to pull back and say, all right, we need to rest it more.
Oh, I agree.
So my thing was if he's still practicing, let's say we hear later on this week that he's practicing the entire week, Monday, Tuesday. If that's the case, like, well, he's obviously not pulling up. He's obviously not favoring it. Because if he was, you go, no. Let's pull it back. You need to rest. All right, we're still in the rest phase and not necessarily the recovery phase. You need to rest more. So the fact that he is practicing shows you that the trainers are not necessarily, they're not alarmed by what they're seeing, which means he's not favoring it. He's not pulling up on some of those throws. And maybe they haven't necessarily opened up the offense yet. And so it's all about the angles, right? That's torque, and then that's your core and all that kind of stuff. So I actually don't know how painful it is, but I know it's going to be a certain level of pain tolerance too. All right, let's hear from Sark, because if he can't go, then Arch will be the man, of course. And Arch, of course, was the big topic of conversation versus ULM getting his first start. Here's Sark talking about the learning curve for the young quarterback.
Well, I mean, he loves the game of football. He studies it and he works at it. I think one of the challenges is what we're trying to get him to point is making sure that when the ball snap that he plays football, because it's still a game and you still have to play it. And I don't want him to get almost paralysis by analysis, because you can over prepare to some degree too, where you start chasing, what I thought was going to happen because this is what I saw. The other team can make mistakes too, and you got to be able to react to the things that happen. So, he works really hard, and I think but we've created, I think, that type of environment in the quarterback room that we want to be the fastest mental players on every snap. And to do that, you have to prepare, you have to work at your craft, and Arch does it just like the rest of the guys.
And he was also asked, in addition to, Quinn, the update we got on his status and how he's coming along in recovery. He was also asked, what does, Quinn have to show you for you to give him the nods, to give him the confirmation that he will be the starting quarterback? Here's what Sark had to say.
He's got to do enough to show me he can play. I know that's probably not the answer you wanted, but that's what I mean. Like, I don't know. It's not, we've got a game plan. Can he execute the game plan? I hate to, pare it down to that, but that's really the truth. Again, I want to make sure he's healthy enough to play at a high level. And can he go operate the game plan that we have in place for him? So that's why I kind of need to see how he responds from today's work, and then what it looks like on a Tuesday, then a Wednesday, which are pretty heavy days for him, and then how he rebounds on Thursday, so on and so forth. So it's going to be kind of a work in progress. But today was a good start. I was actually impressed of where he was today. But that's been part of kind of his trajectory since the injury happened. I feel like he keeps getting, incrementally better day by day.
All right. So questionable is what Quinn would be if they revealed the availability report today. All right. So let's talk about, we'll get back to some Texas football conversation. We'll hear from Sark on the other side when we go behind the Burners curtain. Let's talk about the games last night. Big wins for Washington and also for Buffalo. I think one of the things that these two teams, winning teams last night, have in common, I think their two quarterbacks may have solidified themselves to be the front runner very early on, the front runner in the MVP conversation and the Rookie of the Year conversation. Josh Allen right now is playing the best football of his career, arguably. We haven't necessarily seen him this good, this efficient. He's got, first of all, the reason he's different is 0 interceptions. 0 interceptions, ladies and gentlemen. He does have 2 fumbles, but he only lost 1 of those fumbles. So he did lose 1 fumble. So he does have 1 turnover so far this season, but 0 interceptions, leading the NFL in passer rating and QBR. So we haven't seen Josh Allen playing at this type of level. And I believe right now he is kind of your front runner for MVP. And he's throwing the football downfield. Like, he's making some amazing throws. And I'll give Joe Brady a lot of credit. And I was always been a Joe Brady fan. And even when they made the move, Buffalo made the move to give him the offensive play caller duties, I thought it was I was like, that's an under the radar move right there. I think it's a great decision, but I'll admit he had lost some luster. Remember, at one point he was a fast rising star in the coaching ranks from being the offensive coordinator at LSU, and then went to the Panthers with Matt Rule, and then we know how the rest of that ended. But now, since hiring him as the OC, the Bills offense, points per game, they're 5th in that time span. It goes all the way back to last season. It's week 11 of 2023. They're 1st in their record. They're 8-1 in that time span. If you go look at their points per game, 28 points per game, that will be 5th in that time span. Rushing yards per game, that's important because usually Josh Allen was the run game playing hero ball. No longer the case. They had 142 rushing yards per game overall. James Cook, they're looking really good. 3rd down conversions, 2nd in that time span, 48% 3rd down conversion rate. EPA per drop back, they're 3rd. The offense has been really good since Joe Brady took over, and they lost some weapons. As we talk about, lost Stephon Diggs, they lost some weapons, and yet that offense looks like it finally has found its identity. I don't have Buffalo winning the Super Bowl or anything, but I will admit I was wrong. I thought there would be regression with Buffalo this year. There is not regression right now because Josh Allen is playing the best football we've ever seen him play. He's at the top of his game, and I think he's at the top of the MVP conversation too. And I'll throw this out there about Josh Allen and the Bills, because they might be mixing. I talk about that 5-year window, and they've exhausted the 5-year window. Joe Brady's play calling right now is giving them new life. They've reinvented that offense around Josh Allen. He's still the focal point, but now they have a semblance of a running game with James Cook, and they've gone to more of those two tights, using those tight ends a whole lot more in that Buffalo offense, and it's working for them. It's working really well. And as long as Josh Allen is not a high risk quarterback, but keeps the high reward, because he used to be just high risk and high reward. How about this stat? Bills are 18-0 and average 36 points per game when Josh Allen does not record a giveaway since 2020. They're averaging actually 35.8 points per game. I round it up. 18-0 though, when he does not have a giveaway, when he does not have a turnover. They're 24-9 when he has just one turnover, which he has so far this year. But they are 9-9 in games where he has multiple turnovers. And that has been his issue. So at least in his career. But he has as many games without an interception this season as he had all last season. He has 3 games without an interception this season. All last season, he had only 3 games without an interception. 25-3 since 2020 when he does not throw an interception. And right now, no interceptions.
No, and that
for Josh Allen.
And that defense is being opportunistic. So if you look at week 1 where they had to go make the comeback against the Cardinals and win 34-28 over the Cardinals, they were 1-1. They both teams had 1 turnover. Against the Dolphins had 3, Bills had none. Against the Jaguars, Jags had 2, Bills had none. So they pull away and win those games easily because they're winning the turnover battles. Defenses are getting them. It's good to see DeMar Hamlin get his first career interception last night too.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was a cool moment on Monday Night Football, because Monday Night Football was where his emergency had happened and everything.
Yeah,
so
sure.
For him to be able to get it on Monday Night Football is kind of cool. But
cool.
To see what that defense now is they've had to get rid of some of that big money talent. And now have guys working for spots early in the season. And normally that works early. And then by the end of the season, that's where your consistency breaks down. But early in the season, it's working out for them. They've got some good talent. They're being opportunistic. They're getting some turnovers. And what you said, Josh Allen's not turning the ball over. And so they're winning these turnover battles. And that is being a huge difference in what this team have been doing in years past.
Yeah, and now the Jags find themselves an ugly 0-3. 0-3 teams since 1990. 4 of 162 of them have ended up making the playoffs. So they might as well start making vacation plans instead of postseason plans. That's also the case for Cincinnati. On the other side of things, Washington might be that's a little bit surprising to some. I'm surprised. I like Jaden Daniels coming out. I didn't think things would come together so well for him already. But Cincinnati finds themselves at 0-3, so they got some soul searching to do. But Jaden Daniels, young quarterback, 21 of 23 in a prime time performance on Monday night. His first, by the way, as a rookie quarterback, 91%. How about this? He has a 91% completion percentage. That was the best in a single game by a rookie. Excuse me, in NFL history. Had the 2 touchdowns passing, 254 yards passing. Also ran for 30. He was a leading rusher too. Ran for 39 yards and had a touchdown on 12 attempts. Guys, right now, through 3 games, he is the 7th ranked quarterback when it comes to QBR. And he is 4th in passer rating right now. He's the only rookie quarterback that's top 10 in both. So he's putting together a nice rookie campaign, and probably right now is your front runner for Rookie of the Year. And I remember that cornerback from Cincinnati talking about it was a college offense, and hell, he's the one that they beat over the top for one of those deep touchdowns. Dan Quinn, this is one thing I'll say about Dan Quinn, and I've always praised him for this. He's really good at building coaching staff. He identifies good offensive coaches and really just kind of gems in the coaching ranks. His coaches when he was at Atlanta, his offensive coaches were Kyle Shanahan and Steve Sarkisian. It's pretty damn good coaches to be your offensive coaches when you were the head coach there. He brought in Dirk Cutter too, so you can't bat 1,000. So I don't know about the Dirk Cutter one. I think he's now the OC for the Boise State, actually for Boise State right now. He's got a hell of a running back in Ashton Genty. But Cliff Kingsbury, who's one of the most respected offensive minds in football, not as a head coach, but as an offensive mind, people call him a genius. Matter of fact, Andy Reid called him a genius. Now he's the offensive coordinator for Washington, and Dan Quinn. So I'll give Dan Quinn credit, man. He knows how to pick offensive coaches. I dropped that little nugget at Raheem Morris, who is now the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. He was actually on Dan Quinn's staff in Atlanta and was a wide receivers coach, and then ended up being the DC too. I mean, Raheem Morris is a damn good coach. So he just identifies really good coaching talent. But anyway, I digress. Getting back to it, I like this staff. I like the mix with Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. It seems to be working really well right now. It's a high percentage, high efficiency passing game, but they're taking shots. They've been very calculating about taking their shots down the field. So that's something to watch. I mean, that's his only 2 incompletions were on 2 deep passes, which are your most, I mean, those are your toughest throws as a quarterback. But right now, I'm not going to lie, Jaden Daniels looks really good. I mean, he looks better than any other quarterback in his rookie class right now. And what I love about his game is he's actually a great scrambler. He scrambles, and even in college, he scrambled a lot. He actually had the 2nd and 3rd most scrambles for a quarterback since 2014, but had a 27% explosive play rate when he scrambled at LSU. And by the way, scrambles are always and have been, they're the most efficient actually play in football right now. Teams average, or just quarterbacks do, 8.5 yards per scramble. Hell, your average, yards per attempt is, probably about 6 or 7. You may have 2 or 3 quarterbacks a season that average more than 8.5 yards per attempt. Yet a quarterback averages that every time they scramble. It's really effective. And hell, Josh Allen too, but Jaden Daniels may be one of the best scramblers already in the NFL, but he didn't run a lot. He's working from the pocket. So they're doing a good job of bringing him along. He's not leaning on that ability as a crutch, even though he did a ton of it in college. All right. So there you go. That's a little bit of the discussion about the games last night. We come back. We'll get into some Texas football conversation. I'll give you my observations from rewatching the defense. And we'll talk about the Texas defense. Hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about that Texas defense too. And I'll make a connection between the hottest and right now, the most celebrated defensive coordinator probably in the NFL right now, Brian Flores of Minnesota, for his innovation and creativity and his diabolical nature as a defensive play caller. I will make a connection to some things that he's doing and to what Texas and Johnny Nansen are doing on the 40 acres. We'll do that when we come back. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Berry's coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. I want to start with defense, and we're going to make our way to offense and hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about the Texas offense a little bit. But defense is not getting enough love because currently, right now, the Texas defense is ranked number 1 in scoring defense in the country, number 5 in total defense in the country, number 2 in red zone defense, number 4 in third down defense, number 9 in first downs allowed, number 8 in passing defense. They have 7 interceptions. That is good for number 4 in the country, and their pass efficiency defense is number 8 in the country. By most important metrics, this is a top 10 defense. Top 10 would put you in the category to be elite. They have not yet been tested, but they have performed at an elite level. Sark was asked about this defense, and here's Sark talking about the defensive coaches and the collaboration between, PK and bringing in Johnny Nansen, and then also, bringing in Scott Hazelton, who works with the Nichols now exclusively. There have been some subtle changes, but everything seems to have worked. Here's Sark talking about the coaches, though, and their creative collaboration and how it's helped the D.
Yeah, no, I think, again, the continuity of having PK, Blake Gideon, Terry Joseph, here for 3 years, in year 4 now, I think has been great. I do think the addition of Johnny Nansen has been a good one. They were playing really good defense at Arizona last year, and his presence with our team now, I think, 1, from a schematic standpoint, but 2, just his style of coaching. He's definitely, we got to make sure we keep him off the field during the game. He'll find his way out on the grass, but he's high intensity, a lot of passion. And I think the players really respond to him. And I think that works really well working with PK, PK's demeanor, Johnny's demeanor to go along with the other guys. And so, again, he brought some schematic things to us that I think have been helpful, but also I think his presence, not only on game day, but throughout the week at practice and in our building has been helpful as well.
I remember I told you guys that we were talking about the Texans going up against Brian Flores' defense for Minnesota, and they ran some freaky packages. One of them, they would run a dime package, 6 DBs, and he's running now more dime than anybody in the NFL when they only ran 191 snaps of it in 2023. So they're using a lot of dime. Spagnuolo loves dime too. That's why Spags is a big dime fan. The defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, probably the best defensive coordinator in football right now, other than Brian Flores, who's hot right now. But Spags is OG. And so, he's running on third downs. He's running this dime package, and he takes his defensive tackles off the field and replaces them with just linebackers and edge rushers. And so creating his own NASCAR package. And when I've talked about Johnny Nansen's influence, and I said he was going to bring a lot of new creative ideas and exotics to Texas. And one of them is a NASCAR dime package, which I've kind of coined it the NASCAR dime. I don't know what the hell they call it. I've called it the NASCAR dime, and you'll probably hear people calling it NASCAR dime. Except I don't know. That just makes sense because it's a dime package, and they pair it up with a NASCAR front, which is 3 deep and more than 2 defensive ends on the field, more than 2 edge rushers on the field. So usually you take off a D tackle, which Texas does. They usually bump Barron Sorrell inside, put Colin Simmons out there in this NASCAR dime. So it's kind of what you're seeing guys like Brian Flores do. Is one of the most creative minds in football. And you talk about what you're seeing Spagnuolo do, who's considered the top defensive mind right now in the game for Kansas City. And they are using more dime. And I used to always, criticize Texas last season. Hey, you should use more dime coverage, right? But I don't think they believe they have the depth at defensive back. Now they believe they got the depth and the versatility at DB. So here's my stat for you. On third and long is 3rd and 7+, right? So that's when the odds flip in favor of the defense. We talked a lot about that. We talked about it with the Texans and the Vikings. So 3rd and longs that Texas has faced this year, they've only allowed 1 conversion on 3rd and long, by the way, this year. It was a Colston Loveland reception. In the Michigan game, it was like kind of a Hail Mary style jump ball and a contested catch. But on basically 75% of all of the 3rd and longs Texas has defended this year, they've used either a NASCAR dime package or 3 high safeties. 2 things that they didn't use at all last season. The concepts that they didn't use at all, and now they are their go-to packages on 3rd and long. either a NASCAR dime or a 3 high safeties, or I would say sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's a NASCAR dime with the 3 high safety look, and that is all a Johnny Nansen influence. It is truly, I think, a creative collaboration. But Johnny Nansen's done a great job of bringing the Texas in some new exotic looks for them. And one of the reasons they can achieve and execute those exotic looks is because of the versatility in the back end, which is embodied by Jahdae Barron and his ability to be a multiple chess piece for you. Right now, he's the highest graded SEC defensive back in that conference, and I believe he's one of the top 5 highest graded DBs in the country by Pro Football Focus. Here's Sark talking about the value of Jahdae Barron.
Yeah, well, I felt like Gilbo had a really good spring, and as we started to go through it, we kind of said to ourselves, how do we ensure that we're getting our 5 best players on the field? And Jahdae played some corner for us last year, and when we were in base defense, and when Gilbo came back, I thought to myself, well, if they both just play star, one of our better players is going to be standing next to me, half that time. And that's if we're in nickel. What are we going to do if we go to base? Now they're both standing next to me. And so we just made the decision to say, hey, Jahdae's played a ton of football. He's got a really high football IQ. And really what we did is we taught him 3 positions. He learned, obviously knew the star position, knew enough of corner, and we taught him safety. He was really our 4 safety for Saturday. If we had to have him, he was going to go back there and play. And that's the versatility he gives us. It also gives us a presence, especially into the boundary in the run game. And he gives us a good blitzer from the boundary, and that frees up Manny Muhammad some to play a little bit more to the field and cover guys that way. So what it did really is we've got a versatile group, and that's the biggest thing that's come out of it. And Gavin Holmes has been impactful. I think the 4 safeties have had a really good start to their season, and hopefully we can get those other 2 back with Jelani and Derek back on the field. But it was a good experience for Jordan Johnson-Rebel too. So I just think the versatility of our secondary is really starting to show up. It's allowing us to play a multitude of coverages. They're a veteran group too. So I think our disguising of coverages has been helpful, and that's because they're communicating really well and they're thinking alike. They know what we're trying to get done.
All right, let's start talking about the versatility in the defensive backfield and the depth in that defensive backfield. To that point, how about this? Not only because I found the stat, shout out to my man Nash at Nash Talks Texas. Jahdae Barron with a 90.2 grade is tied for the 4th highest defensive grade among all defenders in college football. So he's and when you look at just the overall highest graded SEC DBs after 4 weeks, hell, Jahdae Barron, of course, is number 1. Michael Taft is number 4. Talk about the depth, in that defensive backfield. He's number 4 on that list. So they're playing at a really, really high level. And I think somebody we don't give props to enough is Malik Muhammad. If you go look at Pro Football Focus, when they look at their coverage grades for cornerbacks, it's just cornerbacks, so not including safeties because Jahdae Barron is listed as a corner. They got Jahdae Barron as the highest graded corner overall. They got Malik Muhammad 3rd behind Tennessee's Jermard McCoy. And then they got Malik Muhammad. So Texas has 2 of the 3 highest graded corners, according to Pro Football Focus, in the SEC. Defense is balling, and it's actually led by the DBs. Just shout out to my homeboys at DBU there. All right, let's get back to some of the Sark sound. Here's Sark talking about the offense and if there are any changes to the offense because of the injuries at the running back position. Here's Sark.
Yeah, we really haven't had to change it. And I don't, to y'all's naked eye of watching it, I don't know if it feels so differently to our style of play. I think we've challenged our backs, when CJ went down or Chris went down, like we believe in running the football. We believe in running between the tackles. Naturally, when you have a veteran quarterback, you might have a little more confidence in Quinn to maybe play pitch and catch and get completions and some obvious rundowns to where a team's committed to the run and you can get completions and get the ball on the perimeter. But at the end of the day, we're doing all that we like to do. I would like our screen game to pick up a little bit. We just missed some opportunities. We had one off of Blue's fingertips the other night, but that's something that we take a lot of pride in. So we're always looking for areas of improvement, but I don't think schematically we've changed a whole lot. We've added some wrinkles like we would every year, but nothing has really dramatically changed.
He wants the screen game to pick up. We talked about that yesterday. It doesn't seem like Arch is naturally good at feathering those throws yet. In the screen game, they're a little tougher than people think for yak opportunities. And he admitted just then higher rates. What I told you guys, elevated rates of pass rates, early game, early down pass rates. And he admitted there on running downs, he trusts Quinn to throw it on those downs, but not so much with Arch, something that, we've talked about here and tracked on the show for a couple of games now. All right, let's get to this last cut here before we get to the break. Here's Sark now explaining why they took so many deep shots in that ULM game. 8 in the first half, 10 overall for Arch. Here's Sark telling you the reason why.
No, that was definitely the plan going into that game. We felt like there were some things there that we could take some shots at. And, in a game plan for us, my call sheet has got, it's got all sorts of different styles of plays and throws. And then in the end, I was sitting with Coach Milwee and we were getting ready to, kind of do our openers and must calls and then our openers. And we looked up and man, there's a lot of shots on here. And I think part of that is a byproduct of we like those plays going into the game. Part of it was a byproduct of, I think Arch is a really good deep ball thrower and gives guys chances to go make plays on those shots down the field and his willingness to go do that. And so it's probably a byproduct of a few of those things. But in the end, like I said, Friday or Saturday night, with a young quarterback, I'm kind of kicking myself a little. I wish I had a few other kind of freebie completions for him just so that there could have been a little bit more balance and not, getting that completion percentage up, being efficient and moving the chains. But the explosive plays are great when you can hit them down the field. You just got to know when to check the ball down, and not everyone has to be that throw. And so, but that's, again, learning experience for him and learning experience for me too, working with him of what that looks like, with him in game.
Yeah. So he admitted, in the broadcast, they admitted he has a better deep ball than Quinn. It's also part of his kind of as a quarterback, part of his preferences. He likes to throw it a little bit deeper and get deeper into the progressions, and probably should check it down some, but I think you're going to have more vertical shots in the offense with Arch. That's just, I think, part of what he likes to do. And I think that's part of the preferences that he has within the offense. You can curtail it and you can make better decisions, more calculated, judicious shots downfield. But Arch wants to let it fly. He wants to let it loose. And by the way, young Quinn probably threw it too deep early in his career too. Real quick nugget on the deep ball before we get to the break. Arch Manning, 25%, over 25% of his throws are passes 20 yards or more down the field. That's the highest number for any Sark quarterback going back to 2019. No Sark quarterback has thrown it deeper more often with higher frequency than Arch Manning. So it's not only, and this is a small sample size, but not only him, but I think it's Sark when he is, calling plays for Arch, where he is a little, he admitted there, we would put more deep shots in there. Now, it could have been the ULM, game plan too, but I predicted before the ULM game plan that they'd be taking more shots. I didn't think they'd take 10 in the game. All right, we come back. We'll get into Off the Record on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Low and Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about my friend and my favorite dentist, Dr. Greg Eckert. He is great, folks. He and his team, they are both fantastic because they helped me out when I needed just a routine checkup and a routine cleaning. Well, that's what I thought anyway. And I went in for one of the for the procedure, and then turns out during their checkup they found that my wisdom teeth were actually growing in sideways, and I was on the verge folks of a dental disaster, if you will, and they saved me from that situation. They made sure that I was comfortable and knowledgeable about the process and the procedure, got it scheduled, got everything done. I was back at work within a couple of days, and my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. Thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team, and I owe them a huge debt of gratitude. Now, hopefully for you, it's not that serious. Hopefully for you, it's something minor, but if it is something major, you're in great hands with Dr. Eckert and his team. If it's general dentistry, whether it's teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure that getting the best quality dental care available, that's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. Matter of fact, because they're always on the cutting edge of all the technological advances in general dentistry right now, they can give you a brand new smile in just 1 day, permanently secured to your dental implants. You'll spend no time without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures first until they can complete your permanent smile, and you'll smile again, and they'll smile again and eat freely without pain or discomfort. We're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told by your dentist or you that you need dentures, or you already have dentures, you can call Dr. Eckert today. Don't panic, because you can learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a complimentary consultation, which means you got nothing to lose but so much to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life. And Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. He's done it for so many, and he can do it for you too. So give him a call today, 512-345-3166, 512-345-3166, or you can visit dreckert.com. And for all Horn listeners right now, you'll get free Zoom whitening with any procedure with Dr. Eckert. Just tell them you heard it here, right here on the Horn. That's dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com. All right, we don't have a ton of time here. We're a little bit over, so off the record, it's not going to be a very long segment at all. I'll just give you this. This is something I was going to get into, but we'll give you this one for off the record. Reggie Bush is suing the NCAA again, as well as suing USC and the Pac-12. What's left of it anyway. For exploiting his name, image, and likeness during his time playing for the Trojans. He also has a separate lawsuit against the NCAA over defamation. Got that going on too. So yeah, he's getting a little bit litigious, I believe is the term for Reggie Bush there. I mean, technically, I can sue the if he wins, I can sue the NCAA for exploiting my name, image, and likeness. I didn't get any checks back then. Even when they settled with the Ed O'Bannon case, they stopped the lawsuit right at 2000. Guys getting it, I believe, started. I think the last one was 2003. I want to say they stopped a year before my last year. Everybody got checks all the way back to 2003, and if they'd have went just one more year, I'd have got a check. I don't know how much I'd have gotten, but hell, I'd have taken that check. That'd have been nice. Never got paid from being exploited.
No, and that's I think the Reggie Bush one too is he's like, guys, you told me that I ruined the integrity of the game and that I cheated and all this other stuff because of some kind of trumped up charges of this stuff that we've later found out wasn't a big deal. And then you continued to use my highlights to promote the Pac-12 and USC for all the time that I was ostracized from being there. You still use my highlights. So you still use that I was one of the greatest players ever there, but you wouldn't let me be a part of it. So screw you guys. I want my money now.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know if he has a case. He might have a case. Who knows? Because the way right now, nobody's siding with the NCAA. I'll tell you that.
No.
They're losing a lot of cases in court. That's what all this, the new landscape of college sports is all about. All right. There you go. We'll come back. We'll get into Texans and Cowboys discussion. How bad is that Cowboys rush defense? How bad is the Cowboys run offense? We'll get into both. And they're disastrously, historically bad. We'll just dive into that. We'll hear from Jerry Jones. We'll hear from Mike McCarthy. Also, we'll hear from Micah Parsons. We'll also dive into the Texans. I got a couple of nuggets to share with you Texans fans out there to put that loss into context. And we had Rod's rant of the day. We're jam-packed in the last hour of the show. So come on back with us right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my man Patrick plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So I appreciate him hooking us up for a top of the charts Tuesday. That song should apply to a lot of Cowboys fans out there. Or hell, Texans fans today too. Don't worry, be happy. It's all right. Don't let one result of just 1 week of the NFL ruin your entire mood for the week. Don't let that happen. So we appreciate Patrick and the positive messages. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day today. After 3 weeks, who do you think will win the NFC East? Right now, the Eagles in the lead with 54% of the votes. Commanders with 32%, 13% for the Cowboys, and the Giants got a vote.
Ooh, yeah, got a vote. All right, Dale. I got the Philadelphia Eagles winning it right now, but I probably would have thought the Cowboys had a chance to repeat, even though it hasn't happened in 20 years in that division. But yeah, man, you can have the worst rushing defense in the NFL. We'll have some stats and nuggets to contextualize that for you, and have the third worst running game in the NFL, and have those two glaring flaws and deficiencies and win a division. One, you could have one and still do it, but both of those, it just makes you too easy to beat. You got too many. You got too many ways to lose games. Seems like more ways to lose a game than you have ways to win games when you're that deficient in those key areas. So that's why I'm not picking the Cowboys. But I will admit, Philadelphia Eagles, they get in their own way a lot, especially some decision making from the top down with coaches. So whether you're talking about Kellen Moore, who's been questionable at times the last few years, or Nick Sirianni, who's been on the hot seat and had to change coordinators a couple of times already. That could be an issue for the Eagles, but I'll take the Eagles right now. Begrudgingly, I will take the Eagles to be the division champions of the NFC East. All right, good question there for the topic for the big fat poll today. We'll hear, speaking of the NFC East, we're going to hear from Mike McCarthy. We'll hear from Micah Parsons. We're going to hear from Jerry Jones, and we're going to hear from Jordan Lewis. All had comments after the Cowboys loss to the Baltimore Ravens, and I think they'll give us a little bit of insight into what the mood is around the Cowboys facility today, and what the Cowboys mindset is, the players, coaches, obviously front office and ownership with Jerry Jones too. So we'll get into that. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, the Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped their first game against the Mariners 6-1 yesterday, still leaving them needing one win in the series to clinch the division. Hunter Brown pitched 6 innings, striking out 8 and only allowing 1 run, but still picked up the loss as Houston could only put 4 hits together in the game. Yordan Alvarez missed the game and will be out the entire series with a right knee sprain as the Astros send Framber Valdez to the mound, hoping to win the division tonight. The Rangers open their series with the A's tonight, with Nathan Eovaldi getting the start. This will be the final series played in the Oakland Coliseum before the A's relocate to Las Vegas next season. The Rangers are looking to finish the season on a positive note after going 4-6 in their last 10 games. And in the NFL, the Bills ran through the Jaguars 47-10 last night, with Josh Allen scoring 4 touchdowns. And the Bengals fell to 0-3 after a 38-33 loss to the Commanders. Joe Burrow threw for 324 yards and 3 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough against the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, who scored 3 total touchdowns in the game. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. All right, before I give you these stats, nuggets, to give you some historical, context on the Cowboys' performance versus the Ravens and how bad it was and how bad that rush offense is and that rush defense is for the Cowboys, let's hear from a couple of Dallas Cowboys. Let's start with Jordan Lewis here, because Jordan Lewis was recently asked, he was speaking to the media, and he started talking about, I guess the word of the day here for Jordan Lewis was details. And some of the things he says here are a bit troubling about how that's something that's lacking with the Cowboys, that maybe there aren't enough guys, maybe coaches too, that aren't into the details of rush defense, the details of being a meticulous, high IQ defender. Here is Jordan Lewis.
You take a lot of confidence up to New York because of your recency. You're like beating them 12 times in a row.
No. It's a new season. It's a new football team. New things we got to get better at. Well, same things we got to get better at. Be detailed.
Is the preparation on a short week a little bit, I guess, easier to come by when it's a division opponent, someone that you are familiar
It's the NFL. Preparation going to be the preparation. It doesn't make it any easier. People going to be gunning for us. And we just got to be detailed, honestly. And that comes with, today's practice and the game.
You said people are gunning for you. Why?
You're not detailed.
Because they think you're vulnerable?
We're not detailed in our work. You can take advantage of details. So that's how you win in this league. Everybody's good in this league. It's the details that make you different.
The new scheme with Zim and all that, but a lot of you guys have played together for a while. Is it surprised that the details are something that's coming up?
That's always been a problem.
That's always been a problem. Details. He didn't want to get into details about the details, but I think we can, read between the lines. And I think there's some things that I think that will connect to something he said and to Micah Parsons. Here's Micah Parsons. He was in the locker room speaking to the media after the game. Now that I believe that Jordan Love audio is from yesterday. But this audio from Michael Parsons, I believe, is after the game, in the post game. And here is some of the things. Now it goes on for a while, but I thought it shows the torment, right? The state of torment that Michael Parsons is in as the best player on that defense, which right now is getting shredded in the run game.
Bro, we don't need everyone to be Superman. We don't need no Supermans at all. We just need 11 guys playing together. Yeah. And right now, it's just not in unison.
How surprising was this?
I mean, preaching something all week. Everyone's in the locker room saying we're going to do what we got to do, and everyone's going to be accountable. Then when you come out, we're just like, how are we getting gas? We're not being accountable. We're not set right. I just like the game going to come down to that third down. If we do what we're supposed to do, we win the game. It's just like, at what cost are we just going to keep doing this to ourselves?
Did they do anything different, or they did exactly what you expected, but they just did what they did?
They did exactly what I expected. Motion of 42, they're going to run to 42, Ricard. I mean, it's plain as day. I mean, we know when it's true pass it. Them guys is in damn near 4-point stands coming up the ball. So it's just like, at one point, are we just going to knuckle up and just play?
Right. How does that feel?
I mean, for me, it sucks. I mean, it's a long year. I would say I never experienced something like this.
What makes you think the run defense can be fixed, and where's the confidence there?
I mean, my confidence is within, the organization, because we got to get it right. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a winning organization. I want to uphold that standard. But at the same time, everyone has to uphold the standard. And, I think I'm confident, in my faith. My faith. I just think we're being tested right now, man.
How do you not get people to play Superman, like you said, or try to make those super heroic plays?
Bro, I have no idea. Like, I'm gonna be real. Like I said, like I really believe we're being tested. I'm being tested. Like, but it has to come together. It's humbling. At your all-time high, God always finds a way to put you back down. And right now, we're low. And everyone has to stay strong within their faith and say, at one point, are we going to trust in God, trust in ourselves, trust in the team, trust in the framework of the defense? Because any cost, like some of the stuff is, at one point, like I said, it's just us being us. So when it's the faith and trust going to be there.
All right, there you go. He sounds, as it tormented. A couple of things he said, other than, obviously there's a lot talking about trust and teammates and obviously faith and his own faith, but also faith in the system and faith in each other. But he talked about them being not in unison. He said not set right. All right, which means they were not even in the right position, alignment issues. And he said that essentially they did exactly what we thought they were going to do. They did not come out. There was no they didn't break tendency, or they didn't come out with some new exotic concept specifically for the Cowboys. Cowboys said, Mike said, no, dude, that's exactly what we thought they'd run. He even gave you the game plan. He's like, they ran to this guy, they run to that guy. He even gave it to you. They couldn't stop it. So to me, I mean, that shows you how the depth of the issues with the Dallas Cowboys. They know what's coming and they can't stop it. They know what's coming. That's even more troubling. Mike McCarthy was asked about some of these comments. He was asked about Micah Parsons' comments. He was asked about Jordan Lewis's comments. Dak Prescott recently has been spotted saying, "Hey, if you want to get off, then get off the bandwagon." I think is what he's referring to. Here's Mike McCarthy when he was asked about the players and now them and their feelings, which are now been made public.
Full Star Telegram. I know you said you guys don't have a ton of time for corrections this week, but with Jordan Lewis talking about details, Michael Parsons last night talking about accountability, how do you kind of work those conversations in this?
Pretty dramatic there, Nick. I tell you must practice that one. Jeez, I mean, well, hey, Thursday schedule. I mean, that's what we're on. I mean, it's we didn't win the game, so I think that's part of where we are. I mean, so. Yeah, I think they do a good job of answering your questions. It's emotional after the game, so I'm not ever going to referee emotion on the field or after a game.
Cowboys defense allowed 274 yards rushing against Baltimore on Sunday. It was only the 9th time in franchise history that they were gashed for so much yardage on the ground. There only been I think you have 6 or 7 rushing totals that have been, 7. I think you had 7 rushing totals that have been worse in Cowboys history than what you saw on Sunday. Also, the Cowboys through 3 games, if you go look at the Cowboys have allowed 557 rushing yards, the most through 3 games since 1963. They've allowed 5.4 yards per carry. That is the worst average allowed by the Dallas Cowboys defense through 3 games since 1979. And they've given up 8 rushing touchdowns, the most in franchise history through the first 3 games of the season. Yeah. If you look at Sunday's rushing margin, the Cowboys were at negative 223, which means they only ran for 51. Baltimore ran for 274. So they were negative 223 in the rushing margin. That is the 3rd worst performance in Dallas Cowboys franchise history in the rushing margin. They also, let's jump to the other side of the ball since we're talking about rushing margin here. That's rushing offense and rushing defense. The Cowboys have 221 rushing yards through the first 3 games of the season. That's it. That is the 3rd fewest amount of rushing yards they have had through the first 3 games of through the first 3 games of any season in franchise history. The other 2 seasons where they finished with fewer than 221 rushing yards in the first 3 games, they went 7-9 and they went 1-15 in those years. And I'll give you one other nugget here about the Cowboys rushing offense, because it also is disturbing. If you go look at the Cowboys individual longest rushing plays, the Cowboys are currently the only team in the NFL that doesn't have a quarterback or running back with a run over 10 yards. Their longest run of the season is a 12-yard run by CeeDee Lamb. Rico Dowdle has a 10-yard run. Nobody else has touched double digits on a carry. If you remove the position filters and just looking at it as the raw data, every team except for the Cowboys and the Raiders have a run over 12 yards this season. That's how abysmal your run game is. That's how bad your rushing defense is. You're the worst rushing defense in the league, 3rd worst rushing offense in the league. I don't know. I mean, I think you fix the defense first. I think you go trade for a D tackle, go get you a run stopper on the D tackle, because right now that's a personnel issue, scheme issue, and player issue. That's like all 3. On offense, I do think you still are moving the football. You're still able to score some points because you have a prolific passing game with Dak and CeeDee Lamb. So maybe that buys you a little time before your offense becomes so one-dimensional that you really can't move the football because teams figured you out there as well. I will admit this is something that I didn't like on Sunday. Dak Prescott threw the ball in a tight window based on next gen stats 35% of the time. That was the highest rate of attempts, targets in a tight window since week 4 of 2018. And everybody remembers 2018 was when the Cowboys were trying to, before Amari Cooper in that trade, they were trying to do wide receiver by committee. It did not work out very well. So, yeah. I think the Cowboys offense, if it can't be too one-dimensional, it just needs to have the complement of a run game. Right now, they don't have that at all.
Yeah. You just have to have the threat that we can run the football if we want to. And if we want to, we have a guy who can come in and you have to get somebody on him or else we'll carve you up. But that's the thing. If the Cowboys played the Cowboys, they'd have to throw the football. And you shouldn't.
That's great. If the Cowboys played the Cowboys, they'd have to throw the football. I think you're right about that, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, the Cowboys' rushing offense is so bad they couldn't even run the ball on the Cowboys' rushing defense.
Which, again, I've said I think is part of the problem is that they went through all the spring and practice and everything else thinking, well, we can run some on this defense, and this defense is stopping the run, so both of them are pretty good. And they didn't realize they were just two garbage pieces going against each other in practice this whole time.
Yep.
And it wasn't until they played somebody else that they realized that this is a problem.
Yep.
But I mean, you're also starting to see the cracks start to fall apart of if you build a culture of we are winners and that's the entire basis of it. When you're not winning, what happens to that culture?
Oh, yeah.
And right now, everyone is just staring at each other saying, what are we supposed to do? Because they just didn't feel like there was going to be adversity. And these guys have gone through it in their lives. They've gone through it with other teams. And so I don't know why everyone in this locker room seems to be so unaware that there was going to be adversity at some point in this. And it just seems like from the top, because even Mike McCarthy, what's funny is he says, well, you rehearsed that. I was like, it sounds like you rehearsed that you were going to try and make this joke, but it came off super mean as opposed to you just playing it off and going, oh, I guess you've been rehearsing your line to come and get me. Okay. And moving on. You clearly were ready for people to come after you and you thought you could play it off and it did not come off the way you wanted to because everyone is so afraid. And I don't know if it's because there's, people up top that are making it seem like they're going to come chopping off heads here in a little bit or what, but it feels like everybody there is basically, if we don't fix this by Thursday, we all have to go to our rooms.
Well, yeah, if the Giants are able to run the ball on you, then we're talking about just a doomsday situation. I mean, you are that means you got to do something right away. You actually may be a team that finishes not under 500 with a losing record.
Yeah.
If the Giants, even if you win and the Giants come away and they can run the ball successfully against you, that means you don't have any solution for the run game in everybody in the NFL.
Well, I mean, if you go 1-3 before you play the Steelers, Lions, Eagles,
oof, good Lord.
You can't go into that one. You have to be 2-2 going into that and try and pull off one of those wins. And again, they're not that far off. Like you said many times, they have tons of talent on this team. They're not that far away. It's not like the Cowboys, there's no hope for this team. They're a couple trades away. And we bring up Jonathan Hankins because that was a 6th-round pick they traded for somebody that, isn't thought of as a great player, but he was a run-stopping specialist. And he came in and it completely transformed that defense into something that was a sieve to, okay, now we can stop it somewhat. We can start to fix other problems. It makes them have to throw the ball. It does not make us where there's one thing to beat. They're not that far away. And the question is, when will Jerry pull the trigger? And I know he wants to win, so he doesn't want to give up a 4th-round pick to try and save the team. And he thinks, well, we can probably get through 3 more weeks, and then I don't have to, and then I'll give up a 6, and then I won. Like, no.
If you're going to make it. Yeah. You don't want to know where you'll be in 3 weeks. I agree with you. You got to do something right away. I would do something immediately.
Oh, yeah. I
would
mean,
start making a move.
Yeah, I would be on the phone with
trade for
people right
somebody.
now with defensive tackles. I'd wait on running back
Yep.
because I think you can still win some of these games without a running back. And then right around the trade deadline, see who's still out there and see if you can make a trade at the deadline for a running back. But defensive tackle, you have to fix. The fact that you brought in guys that every other team in the league said wasn't good enough to make their practice squad should tell you what you brought in.
Yeah. You obviously miscalculated the contributions of those guys. And you know what? But I will give them credit. They brought in two. They brought in Joseph and Phillips. Yeah. They did. They tried. And the Molly Smith experiment has not worked out. That's pretty obvious too. That ain't going to work out for you. You have a problem at D tackle. You got a short-term problem and a long-term problem at D tackle, a serious one that you got to figure out right now. You got to get a quick fix. But then you need to start thinking about long-term, what you're going to do at D tackle, because you can't keep going through this cycle every other year.
But it feels like it's going to be one of those Jerry things of he's holding off Dalvin Cook as this magic pill that, well, we're not going to bring him back. It's Thursday, short week, so we can't bring him back in this week. And he's going to wait until it gets really, really bad. And then, guys, savior of the team, a guy who wasn't that good last year.
Seriously,
It's like you can't. How much of it is Jerry Jones trying to trick everybody to still be a Cowboys fan, even though he understands this team is not going to win the way it's built, or how much of this is him actually believing that the team can win and trying to fix it, but just not trying to lose on a negotiation, so he doesn't want to say anything.
I don't know if he's a devious gaslighter or a delusional.
Well,
you know what I mean?
we know he's a devious gaslighter because he says we can't afford players, and he can.
Or if he's both. Yeah, he's devious gaslighter and also delusional. I don't know.
Someone asked us on the text line earlier, how can you say they don't spend money when they just paid CD and Dak and made them high paid? Every team in the league has a salary cap that everybody basically is around the salary cap. Within a few,
and you have a salary floor.
You have a salary floor.
Spend a certain
so
amount.
You have to spend there.
Spend a certain amount.
Now, if you spend cash, you can change that up and you can spend more than other teams spend. So there still is a salary cap, but there's ways around it. There's ways of what counts against the cap versus what's cash.
Yep.
There's ways you can make
you have
things
more
work.
Flexibility if you spend cash.
Yes.
Straight up.
Jerry Jones does not spend cash. He never has. The problem with that is he can say, well, I didn't spend cash. And you go, well, you bought the team for $140 million. So I get why you didn't spend cash then, because the league didn't make as much cash then. And I get that. It's been 30 years. Your team is worth 71 times more than you bought it for. Take some of that cash that you made off of your great investment and your great marketing skills and spend it so that you don't have a bad team, so you don't have a team that has a critical flaw every single year. Spend a little bit more, just a little bit more, and you could do it. And if you don't, that's fine, but don't lie to my face and tell me you can't.
I mean, I will say that they've been spending in that manner for the last decade and a half, though. That's not really how they operate. They've been one of the lowest cash spenders in the NFL.
And when's the last decade. When's the last time they played for a conference championship?
It's been a while.
So
yes.
Okay.
Keep
running that brick wall. Keep running into it. Tell me when you get through.
Yeah. And then they spend stuff on things that I think are ill-advised, like the bonus they had to give Trey Lance that didn't make any sense because that's way too expensive for a third-string quarterback, and you could have given that money to a running back and got a better, more impactful player at running back, but don't get me started. Either way, matter of fact, speaking of, they asked Jerry Jones about running back. They asked him why he didn't spend, on the running back position, and I think they were talking mostly about Derrick Henry, because Derrick Henry admitted that he wanted to go to Dallas and the Cowboys weren't willing to match that number for whatever reason. Well, now here is Jerry Jones giving you the reason why the Cowboys did not spend big on Derrick Henry or another big free agent at running back.
I don't know. Why can't you buy a mansion when you live in a different kind of house? We couldn't afford it. We can't make that all fit. It's simple as that.
Why? I don't know.
Why can't you live in a mansion when you live in what do poor people live in? Think of another word. Think of another word. Another kind of house, he says.
I mean, you can't get mad at him for that. It's been a while since Jerry Jones has been able to relate to the common man because the gin pop. Come on now.
What do you think?
Like, some other kind of house. What's other kind of house there? The 2-story house or whatever.
Jerry,
duplex.
You can't
Where
tell
do people
me
live in?
you have a $10 billion franchise.
That's great.
And then go, well, we can't afford a better house.
Oh,
that's crazy. I can't. How can we afford a mansion? Oh, with the billions of dollars that I'm worth, we could afford it.
Jerry Jones kind of mansion is very different than mansions we're thinking of too. Jerry Jones,
I mean,
it's a different.
Jerry Jones' guest house is a mansion.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The pool house, that's probably bigger than the house that I live in right now. Jerry's pool house. I'll take that pool house.
Jerry's mansion is the size of our neighborhood, Rod.
Pretty much, yes. That one block that separates you and me, that couple of blocks, that's Jerry Jones' estate right there for his house. I agree with that. All right, there you go. So that's the Cowboys nugget there. All right, let's give you this Texans nugget, and then we'll take the break. And we'll come back and hear from Steve Sarkisian and give you some more Sark sound from the Monday media availability. So I kept harping on, the fact that Texans had to stay out of third and long against Minnesota, and that Brian Flores defense, if they didn't stay out of third and long, they would be in, they'd be in dire straits, if you will, because that's when Brian Flores really pulls out his bag of tricks and gets really exotic with the pressure packages and throws out the really elaborate coverages, is on third and long, 3rd and 7+ yards to go. It did it against the 49ers, held the 49ers, I think, to 2 of 10 on third down. I said they'll do the same thing to a Mick Shanahan offense in Bobby Slowick and the Texans if they aren't able to get into third and manageable downs. Well, the Texans didn't heed my advice. They had 14 third downs. 13 of them ended up being third and longs. Yeah, 3rd and 7+ yards to go. Now, there's a lot contributing to this. Bobby Slowick he's a bit mediocre as a play caller on first down. I don't know what it is. It's weird. They just don't get a lot of yardage on first downs. The run game doesn't work well on first downs, and the passing game doesn't work well on the first downs. That's a Bobby Slowick problem. Bobby Slowick's got to get that figured out. That often leads them to 2nd and long. And in that game, specifically versus Minnesota, the Texans, there were 15 second downs that CJ Stroud had. And it says here that CJ Stroud ended up with basically 5 net yards. Sorry, the Texans ended up with 5 net yards on second downs versus Minnesota. That's from Bill Barnwell. And also, according to Bill Barnwell, the Texans faced 3rd and 10+ yards to gain on more downs than any team in a game since 2022. So they had more 3rd and 10+ yard third downs than any team in a game since 2022. That's crazy. So not only were they in 3rd and long a lot, they were in 3rd and long more than any team that we've seen, or at least 3rd and really long, more than any team that we've seen in the NFL in 2 years. Yeah. And it's all because they were horrible on second down, and they're always below average on first down. And when they do have to convert third down, they're about 37% third down conversion rate, around 30, maybe 39% this year, but 37% last year. So they're not elite in even converting third downs, let alone 3rd and long and 3rd and really long. So they got to fix that. And it was the pre-snap penalties were a big part of that too, because the offensive line has lots. I believe the Texans right now have 28 penalties on the season, guys.
Yeah, they're I believe 2nd or maybe 3rd in penalties.
I think you're right. I think it's like Baltimore has more. Baltimore has a lot of penalties too.
Yeah, Baltimore has the most. I know that.
Yeah, Baltimore has 31. The Browns have 29. Texans have 28. So you're right.
By the way,
3rd most penalties.
If you want to know one of the reasons why the Cowboys came back in that game was because of the massive amount of penalties that the Ravens got.
Yeah,
like they
self-inflicted wounds.
They had over 100 yards in penalties in that game. That was one of the reasons.
Good point. Look what the Texans are. So the Baltimore Ravens, they were an 0-2 team and just barely scraped by, but barely squeaked by.
Yeah.
Could have been 0-3. All right, if the Cowboys had pulled off this miraculous comeback. You got the Browns. I haven't even looked at the Browns record, but the Browns are bad. I don't know if they're winless or they got one.
I think they have one win.
I think they did get a win, surprisingly. So the Browns are bad. So you're there, and then you got the Dolphins. And I believe the stat for the Dolphins haven't led all season long yet. They haven't had a minute where they've been in the lead this season, if I'm not mistaken. it's a weird, freaky stat that I've seen there about the Dolphins.
I mean, the Dolphins do have a win though.
I know, but I think it was like a last second one.
Yeah, that makes.
I want to say they got it was like a game winning, like a field goal or something freaky like that.
Yeah, with 0 seconds on the clock. You're right, 0 seconds on the clock when they hit it.
I want to say they are like the only team in the NFL. So I was like, that's not true. Didn't they?
That makes sense.
I wouldn't say they're the only team in the NFL has not led at all.
And somehow they still beat the Jaguars.
That's a great. Yeah, that is true. Which is an 0-3 team. That's how bad they are. Yeah, the only team in the NFL to not hold a lead for a single second this season. Yeah. That's Miami Dolphins.
You know who else beat that? You know who else beat Jacksonville? The Browns.
Who? Oh man, Jacksonville is so bad. Oh, is that the Browns win? Ugh.
Oh, the Browns win. Yeah.
Doug Peterson might be out then.
I think Doug Peterson needs to be out at this point. Like I like Doug Peterson, but clearly
I do too.
The milk's gone bad in Jacksonville.
Yes, I agree. And you just paid Trevor Lawrence, so he ain't going nowhere. You got to find another solution. So the Dolphins are got 27 penalties, and then there's Green Bay with 26. But Green Bay hadn't had their starting quarterback for the last 2 weeks, so that's why Green Bay has got a lot of penalties. I bet they're on offense. I bet they're like procedure penalties and stuff like that. Yeah, because they got a young quarterback out there. So look at the group you're in, Texans. Look at the group you're in. All right. Look at right. What does that tell you about where you are? As you're an undisciplined team.
Yeah.
You're indisciplined. You got to figure it out, D'Amico. All right. That's enough of me ranting. Let's hear from Sark on the other side, and we'll also come back and tell you about my observations I noticed about this Texas defense. All that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Get into Rod's rant of the day. I want to get into some Steve Sarkisian audio from his media availability yesterday. A couple of things, though, to put a bow on our discussion, at least for the time being, about the Cowboys. We were talking about the Cowboys last segment. Saw a quote recently from Jerry Jones. I'll try to find his audio so we can use it tomorrow. He was asked by the guys on the fan, hey, what about the roster? What do you think about this roster? And he said, quote, y'all knew it was coming. I like where we are at all positions. We like our guys.
So at what point can we, as a community, put him in a home?
I mean,
because you got to be senile to think that, right?
At running back and D tackle, yeah.
I
would ask him specifically. I'd have been follow up and like, what about running back and D tackle?
I know they've asked him about it before, and he said he likes where they're at the running back.
I know, he did say that. He did say that. They didn't. I remember it.
They did ask him, and he still said it.
And he still said it. Yeah, that was actually like I want to say like last week or something. They asked him about it specifically, and he said he was fine with it. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Cowboys fans. It does seem like I said, either he's delusional or he's gaslighting you, or both, and I'm not sure exactly.
You think it's a little bit of all of it?
It could be a little bit of all of it, which, like I said, if you're a Cowboys fan, man, it's tough to deal with. All right, so let's get to it. Let's get to the audio from Sark here. Now, I have a couple of pieces that I want to get to, but this one is really fun because I heard this yesterday too, and I'm glad Patrick pulled this one. So Sark was talking about the availability report, which is the college football injury report, basically, and he was talking about the need for it. Like, what's the reason for it? You know, why is there now an availability report all of a sudden? And Sark keeps it real, and hell, keeps it real even if keeping it real is going to go wrong. I like the statement from Sark. Here's Sark on the availability report and what it's all about.
The report, I think it's a good thing. You know, the report really, so that everyone's clear of why we do this report, it's so that we can minimize the leaks in all of our buildings from a gambling perspective. Everybody wants to know the truth, right? For everybody that's trying to figure out who's playing and who's not. And then everybody wants to call, student trainers and student managers of who practiced, who didn't, all these things. So at the end of the day, if that minimizes them having to talk to people, all right, I'd just give the report. It is what it is. I mean, that's why the NFL has done it. For me, sure, you'll monitor it, but I'd love to say that everybody's just got this moral code and they're going to exactly put down what's supposed to happen in the game. I'm not sure if everybody operates that way, right? I mean, it is football. So everybody's trying to look for an advantage somewhere in all this. So I think we'll monitor it, but I don't think we're just going to put all of our stock into what their injury report says.
Hell, you probably do better listening to some of the insider sites about stuff like that. But yeah, no, I've got a last Sark kept it real. I mean, it's about now sports gambling and sports betting.
Yeah,
it's becoming more and more mainstream, and as the college game becomes more and more professionalized, if you will, sports betting's a big part of it. So he didn't hide it. Good for him. He's got Sark is he said that he's approaching everything with an NFL mindset. He does say that. He says they should take the NFL rules in regards to the injury reports. You even talked about, Patrick, how he refers to the non-conference as preseason a lot of the times in his head. So I actually like that. That Sark's taking kind of an NFL approach to things like that. I think it's effective for him. Okay, so we didn't talk about this. We talked about the defense, but we didn't talk about the linebackers from that ULM game. That may have been the position that had the breakout game. Leon Lafau led the team in tackles. He had a sack. He had the safety as well. Anthony Hill had the interception. Should have been a pick six, but ended up having the interception and had a sack early in that game. I mean, those breakout performances of that ULM game. So here we start talking about the linebacker depth that maybe we haven't celebrated enough.
Well, we've always felt really highly of Lafau. He just, the way the depth chart was as a true freshman, you had Jalen Ford and you had Anthony and you had Leonga. So, but he was an impactful player for us on special teams. We talk a lot about Trey Wisner a year ago on teams, or a Jelani McDonald. Leonga was in that kind of same mold. And he's just come back this spring. I think, he's got a great relationship with Coach Nansen. And I think Coach Nansen's approach, everybody's approach as a coach is a little bit different, has really resonated with Anthony and Leonga. And their style of play fits what we're doing defensively right now. And then, Ty Anthony, we didn't really know. I thought I was getting a developmental player, quite frankly. He was a guy who was undersized coming from Jasper. But shoot, he gained almost 20 pounds in his time here in a short amount of time. He's very instinctual. He's really athletic. And so not a finished product by any means, but as a true freshman, he's getting some meaningful snaps right now. So we feel good about the future at that position, but more importantly is the playmaking ability that we can rotate those guys. And I haven't referenced David Benda, Mo Blackwell that are in that mix as well.
Yeah, the linebackers have looked good. I mean, the entire defense looks good. The defense looks great. I mean, that's just the defense right now. We're not talking enough about it because they haven't really been tested, but they've passed every test they've had so far. The number 1 defense in the country in scoring defense, number 5 in total defense, number 2 in red zone defense, number 4 in third down defense, number 9 in first downs allowed, number 8 in passing defense, number 8 in pass efficiency defense, number 4 in the country in interceptions. I mean, right now it's performing like an elite defense. Hasn't been tested yet, but like I said, at every major important metric, they are performing at an elite level. And like I said, a lot of that is, the secondary and the linebacker, just the back 7 overall. I mean, they're all playing at a really high level. Jahdae Barron is considered he's the 4th highest grade defender by Pro Football Focus in the country. And in the SEC, the 2 of the 3 highest graded cornerbacks by Pro Football Focus are Malik Muhammad and Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron's higher, but Malik Muhammad's in the top 3 as well. I mean, everybody's playing at a really high level. And Leon Lafau had his breakout game, and so did Anthony Hill. One little quick nugget I'll give it to you. Yeah, we've talked a lot about 2 high safeties taking over football at the NFL level. Mel Kiper, had a hot take about the NFL should ban 2 high safeties or at least restrict them so that they won't have a negative effect on offenses. I would say Texas is actually going the opposite direction. PK, because of the Gary Patterson influence, he was playing a lot of quarters coverage, a lot of match quarters coverage with 2 deep safeties and 4 DBs responsible for 4 quarters of the field. But recently with Johnny Nansen coming in, something I did predict, because Arizona played so much single high safety, 70+% of their defense of snaps were out of the single high safeties. I said, because of that, I think he's going to have an influence on Texas. And even after watching the spring game, Texas is going to play more single high. Texas played more single high safety coverage this season than in every game. So they play in every game. They've had more single high looks than they've had 2 high looks in every game. That tells me that is part of that Johnny Nansen influence. And Texas is kind of going against the grain. The rest of the college football world, maybe NFL world, they're going with more 2 highs. Texas is actually going more single high, which are your cover 3s and your man coverage. And I think you can do more creative things out of the single high because you've got more bodies you can move around because you only got 1 deep safety as opposed to 2. So that's something to keep your eyes on. And 3rd and long. Right now, Texas is great at 3rd and long. If they get you in 3rd and long, you might as well call it quits. You might as well curl up in the fetal position. Texas has allowed one conversion of 3rd and long, 3rd and 7+ all season long. And one thing I have noticed, they like to use creative. That's when the exotic looks come out for Johnny Nansen too, kind of like Brian Flores, all right, or Steve Spagnuolo. The best defensive minds, they get really creative on 3rd and long. That's when you see the NASCAR dime or the 3 high safety look on 75% of the 3rd and longs Texas defended. They break out the 3 high and or that NASCAR dime to get really exotic and funky and crazy. And I think it's part of the reason that they're so uniquely effective against teams when they get in the 3rd and long. All right, we come back. We'll wrap it up, put it in the oven. We'll play Who Said That on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Top of the Charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. Also, Patrick comes up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and we're grateful for that conversation starter all the time. Today, he wants to know, after 3 weeks, who do you think will win the NFC East? If you got a hot take, you can leave it there. But right now, 51% of you say the Eagles are going to win the NFC East this year. All right, let's get to who said that. That's when Patrick plays a piece of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that.
All right, I know you're trying to get in that right headspace. I know you and Danny just announced that you guys are pregnant and expecting your first child. Me personally, knowing what that Y means and knowing how important that is, I wanted to give you a little gift before you head back into the locker room to say congratulations on your new child and wish you guys all the best.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you trying to mess up my headspace. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go back and lock in now.
In 10 games after I had Koa. So I'm just saying, we've seen a lot of great things. We might see some great things.
We get it, James. We get it. Keep pumping yourself up. That's awesome.
Now, you know what? Go back in the locker room. Go, Walt. Have a great day, big guy.
I love you,
brother. Have a great day.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Or what?
I'm not sure I know who that is.
That was JJ and TJ Watt talking pregame.
Okay, nice.
That they were talking pregame. JJ was got a gift for his brother for the impending birth of his first child they just announced, and his brother was like, "Thanks, I'm about to go play a game. Thanks for getting my
I'm gonna go lock in." Yeah, thank you for distracting me with that. Oh man, that is fantastic. That is great. That is good stuff. They may end up being like the Kelsey brothers, honestly.
Yeah,
they got a chance to. They got that kind of, and the Mannings, of course. They got that kind of chemistry. All right, thanks, Patrick, for all you do. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.